Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Mumia Obsidian Ali. You know who I am. I need no introduction, right? And you're listening to the Grown Man Hour with my man Bernard Riley, heard weekdays right here on YouTube. What do you think about that? How about that? Now let's get back on with the show. Thank you.
What's up? What's up? And I bumped the mic again. Already made the first unforced error, but that's all right. What's going on, everybody? I'd like to thank everybody that came in today. I see a few people already filed in and dropped some comments already, bright and early. About to get this thing started, We will be joined today by Obsidian. The topic is inspired from something that he wrote in his newsletter. Well, it was a question that I asked a few weeks ago on the show. I didn't have a good answer to it, and just happens to be the case that Obsidian more or less wrote an article on that in the newsletter. I don't know if that was something that he put on the Negro manosphere. I'm not 100% sure about that, or if that's just something that he just put in his newsletter. But I know I opened it up and I read it, and I thought his take on it was interesting. So that's definitely what we're going to be getting into on this show. I'm actually sending him the link right now. I meant to do that earlier. So I'm sending Obsidian the link right now. That's something that we're going to be getting into. One observation that I noticed, and I'll give my little spiel on this. Well, first, let me double check, make sure that people can actually hear me. Okay, I'm looking at the stream guys right now. I can see the thing moving back and forth. So apparently all things seem to go. All things seem to be a go. But as usual, you know how I do. Shout out to the early bird squad. Those that, and there's a UFO riding by. I got to get soundproofed. Anyway. Hopefully, y'all probably couldn't hear that. It sound loud as hell coming through my speakers. Anyway, Excalibur, shout out to the early bird squad. Those that made it in bright and early, I appreciate y'all. Excalibur in the building, says salute Bernard, third degree burns. What's going on? Salute to Chief BD, Soul Providers. Let's see, Spacely Man says, what's up, fellas? We also got Jack 3D. D. Anderson in the building says salute, or no, he didn't say salute. He said peace. Be in peace to all brethren and sisterin. D. Rock Den in the building. Christopher Clipper, Mr. Pump and Dump Trucking. I saw a business that had pump and something else on it. It wasn't dump, but it reminded me of pump and dump. It said pump and shit. I should have took a picture of it. The shit was funny. Shit was funny. I'm going to see pump and dump on the side of a truck someday. I got my eyes open for it. Mr. Wright says, good morning, and thank you very much for that $2 super chat. Way to get things started off early in the morning. Hopefully, y'all can keep those coming. Keep the likes coming. Y'all saw how I said earlier, hit the like button on the way in. That's very important. That's how you let the algorithm know that you're in here and you like being here so they can send it to other people. Make sure you're doing that. Make sure you're doing that. Make sure you're hitting that like button. You can share it. You know the routine. Ephraim McKenzie says, what up, Bernard? Hey, that cat in that picture you got there, that motherfucker was world famous for a little bit. He was in every damn meme. Sugar G is in the building, says good morning. And Bernard, everyone enjoying the Grown Man Hour. What's up, Sugar G? Bowdy Thug, Wash Gamer Channel. Women have shown, Watch Gamer Channel says, women have shown that they don't want good black men until it's too late. Cut to the chase, drop some laughing emojis. Young Peasy Says Obsidian is hilarious. Thank you. Mr. Negative the Negative Man. This is the last of the early bird squad that I'm going to read off. He says both feel like they can do better. Interesting. Oh, cut to the chase says we can hear you just fine. Good. Thank you. All right. Rest of you go ahead, hit the like button on the way in as more people file on in. Hit that like button, let everybody know you're here. We're gonna have a good show. Oh, we got another one coming through. Jessica X dropped a super sticker. Says she didn't say shit. She just made a $2 donation. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. All right, let me get this thing going. Like I said, we will be joined by the O man, but my little take on it, sorry, I'm stretching on the air. That one felt good too. I felt a bone crack in my back. But anyway, my take on this. This is an observation, and I know a lot of us have seen this. A lot of us have noticed this. This show isn't necessarily about swirling, but this is just an observation. When you look at the simple, when you look at, let's say, a lot of the swirling chicks. Now, it's some that are batshit crazy. We know that. We see those. I'm now acknowledging those. But a lot of the swirling chicks, a lot of them at a snapshot, when you look at them, a lot of them seem to be in decent shape. Now, I know Crystal and Karazin did her pink pill summit, and Obsidian showed the videos that show that or the pictures that show that that's not necessarily the case. Some of them bras was looking like the chicks that show up at the Derek Jackson Ace Metaphor events. That much is true. And I think those ones were the aspiring swirlers who wasn't quite meeting the mark. But the ones who are really doing it, and you see it in the pictures, a lot of them are, in shape, natural hair, and just at a glance, at a snapshot, they just seem like chicks that, walk and talk and carry themselves very similar to Crystal and Karazin or Irene Yvette. And so at a snapshot, if we get a lot of the, crazy talking points out of the way, at a snapshot, a lot of them do seem like genuinely good women. Kildu says, never heard of pink pill. That is Crystal and Karazin thing, and she had a YouTube channel that was called Beyond Black and White. It's now called Pink Pill, but the Beyond Black and White, the black in Beyond Black and White met black women, and the white in Beyond Black and White met white men, and her goal, well, the politically correct way she said is black women need to open their dating options, but what she really meant is get you a white man. So that was she wrote a book called Swirling, basically, more or less trying to teach black women how to get them a white man. But I'm just pointing out that sometimes when you see the women that are actually swirling, not the aspiring swirlers, the ones that are actually doing it, that are actually succeeding, they're actually women that conduct themselves, or just from the optics, are women that seem like they conduct themselves, operate in the way that a lot of people in the black manosphere say that black women should conduct themselves, or as far as this, the natural hair, being in shape, being polite and feminine and all of that and blah, blah, blah. So at face value, the optics, those are good women. Now, when you flip that around and you look at the black men who do the equivalent, let's look at the SKCs of the world. And yeah, you got some talking points that make a lot of black women cringe. We get all that. But at the same time, nobody would argue that SKC isn't genuinely a good man, and his wife and his children are not lucky to have him. Nobody could legitimately argue that point. when you look at a lot of the men who date out, we know the stats on how it's 30% of educated black men are marrying out. So the fact of the matter is that it's a lot of good black men who are indeed just absolutely good, decent, sound black men who are with women of other races. And it seems as if the black women who are the equivalent are getting with men of other races. So the question that I ask is, what's stopping these good black men and good black women from getting together? What's stopping it? Is this a side effect of integration, where we're integrated into, other communities, so to speak, and it makes it a situation where the good black men and good black women are so spread out, so far apart, so few and far between, they have to find each other? And that sort of leads me to what Obsidian wrote about. He was talking about Kevin Samuels, I believe it's called, I think they're calling it a mixer or something like that. I haven't been there. It's on Facebook. Kevin Samuels has a group on Facebook of the, high value black men that he talks about, and the women who are, I suppose, in the runnings for those men. And so there's spaces online dedicated to making those things happen, to bringing those men and women together. Now, overall, by and large, there's going to be small victories here and there, but overall, by and large, it all seems to not necessarily, or at least on a large scale, to where we can notice it doesn't seem to be working. Probably a lot of small victories going on with what Kevin Samuels is doing, but overall, the data is what the data is right now, and we are where we are, so we have to look at it from there. See people coming in here. We got 100 people in here. Let's get 100 likes. Not just playing. I know y'all ain't that generous with the likes. But let's get the likes up. I haven't even looked at them. I don't know where they at. I just know they ain't right. That I know. Black Torch in the building. Good morning. Good morning. GA Boy says, I'm an urban guy who just not comfortable dating other races seriously. I was able to have sex with them, but not get serious with them. Interesting. Mela says they're afraid of the perpetual stereotype pushed by society. No one wants to play games when it comes to choosing a life mate. I don't think black people, when dealing with black people, are moved by the stereotypes of black people. I think we're moved by experience with black people. Other people that don't really be around us can say that they're moved by the or we can argue that other people that aren't us, that aren't around us, can be moved by the stereotype. I think black people more times than not are moved by their experience with black people. I do still think it's an extreme view to say I absolutely positively will not date a black woman. I think that is more or less an extreme view to say I mean, look, like we all know and understand that it's some racist white people. We all know and understand that. But we all know and understand that in our day-to-day going about dealing, traveling, doing whatever we're doing, we're going to deal with some white people. And in our travels, in our dealing with white people day to day, you know what we do? We end up finding a lot of really great ones, a lot of really nice ones. That's cool. Get along with, you can do business with, but yet there's still a lot of racist white people. There's still a lot of racism in this country. But you can't put everybody I mean, we understand the concept of not putting everybody in the same box, and we don't want everybody putting all of us in the same box. So I feel like when you say that this race of people I will absolutely positively never date, is going too far with an extreme. It is to me. Now, obviously, yeah, I know what I'm about. I'm about life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, however you see fit. So I support the brothers that make that decision. But that's just further than where I would go with it. I think a woman should judge an individual man on his individual merits, and a woman should get that same courtesy from men, regardless of the ethnic reputation of black men. I think a black woman should judge that individual black man on his merits. Therefore, a individual black man, regardless of the ethnic reputation of black women, that they loud, they obnoxious, they this, they that. I think a black woman who's not displaying those characteristics, she should be judged on her merits. The woman that I'm with don't display all of that. I'm going to judge her based off who she is. I'm going to deal with her based off who she is, not based off what, Shaniqua and them doing. Ty City in the building came through with a $5 super chat. Once again, shout out and congratulations to Ty City for hitting 1,000. Big ups to him for that. Ty City doing good work. It will be redundant right now for me to tell y'all to go subscribe to Ty City. I'm sure y'all already are. I get a bigger crowd in here, I might send people over there. We only got 53 likes in the building. And what the hell going on? What in the haberdasheries and hemoglobin is going on right now? Is that actually fucking Taz in the chat? All right. Oh shit. Oh shit. Anyway. Emperor Sam says black women are always cooperative when there's come to date white guy. Why their relationship works smooth. All right, I'll go and address this. I'll go ahead and address this. This is where I'm at, and this is what I've said before. Ever since the April Fool's Day massacre, it was determined and concluded that the two sides, the black manosphere and that sector of B1, need to part ways, need to go their own way. Because when they come together, the shit is too toxic. The shit is too crazy. The shit is just too... It's not just healthy debate. It's too much bullshit going on behind the curtain to where you can't come to the other side of the curtain and even have a discussion. And that's where I'm at with that, and that's where I'm going to always be with that. That's where I'm at. I ain't out here personally attacking nobody. I ain't got shit to say about nobody. But for me, those two sides have to stay separate. It's just all it is. If doxing is on the table, if all of that shit, I mean, And I know it was all kind of bullshit going on before, that sector of B1 came into the fray, but the shit got to an all-time high and the sides need to separate. And that's just where I'm at with it. That's where I'm at with it. That's where I'm at with it. That's where I'm going to be at with it. I ain't about getting to no beefs. I ain't about getting to no shit. But the two sides do not need to be together. And it ain't personal. It's just after seeing all the shit to go on, and I'm not even in the business of trying to litigate whose fault it was, who was wrong about this, who was wrong about that. This person said this and that person said that. And then this email right here on the 5th line shows that notwithstanding withholding this clause and this, not fuck all that. Nah, the sides just need to separate. And that's all it is to it. And that's where I'm at with it. I can't even, I can't even pretend like shit is normal. And that's what I said from the start. And that's where I'm at now. And that's where I'm going to be for a while. As long as the shit is going to be about beef and personal attacking and doxing and accusing and accusations and this or that and coming from all sides, it's just the sides need to separate. That's what I said once. I said that before. I'm saying it again now, and that's where I'm at, and that's where I'm going to stand on it. And that's that. New 580 says black men outgrow black women. But when you listen to some of the so-called good black women, they will say themselves that they outgrow us. They outgrow hood. They outgrow the community. And then there's the David Carrolls of the world that say they ruined the community. They ruined that. They created that situation that they feel that they need to divest from. They need to divest from their own creation. And see, I already see people in the chat talking shit and taking. Listen, man. Those sides need to separate. And that's where I'm at with it. Because I can see he even asked the question, who docs and who this, and then that's going to start a whole conversation of trying to relitigate April Fool's Day massacre. And no, I ain't trying to relitigate. I ain't trying to relitigate shit. I'm not trying to figure out who's right or who's wrong. I'm not trying to figure out who's right or who's wrong. Like, that's where I'm at. I just think it need to be separation. That's all to it. That's all to it. And that's where I'm at. Let's see. I'm all thrown off my course right now. All thrown off my course right now. What the fuck was I talking about? Let me pull up the YouTube feed so I can see what's going on that end. And somebody apparently timed him out, and that's cool. That's cool. Because I listen, I'm about the separation of the two sides. I think that what B1 do and what B1 is about, they can be about that without, back and forth beefs with the manosphere. I don't care who started the shit. I know I ain't in that shit, but I don't care who started the shit. And I don't care who was wrong or who threw what punch first and who did this in retaliation to this because of that, because of this. I don't give a damn. If the shit is just, it's too much bullshit that goes on. It's too much bullshit that goes on. All right. Black Torch says, Bernard, please answer my question. Are there any good black women? Of course there are. Of course there are. Percentages? That's where it gets difficult. That's where it gets difficult. It's about the percentages, trying to figure out what we're going to do far as the percentages. And it's a fair question to ask how many black men fall into that, good black men category. It's a fair question to ask on both sides. But if you're just asking a very simple question, are there? Well, yeah, of course. Of course there are. Mr. Shane Vicious. The black woman is I don't even know what that word says. Xenomorph queen. Blackistan comes from between her legs. Whenever she goes, a hive will eventually rise. Black Torch, you says at least by the stats, it's 54%. What exactly do you mean by that? And I apologize, fellas. I got to go on mute for a second. I got a potentially important phone call. Give me 1 second. All right, 1 second, fellas. I'm sorry about that. I'm almost done. Hey, wake up. I'm on hold again. And they sending me over to benefits. So just wait. Come get me when it's ready. All right. I'm back. Obsidian need to hurry up and save me. Sometimes I get phone calls and got shit going on. At least let me double check, make sure I sent Obsidian the link. Got more going on than what I intended on having going on. But I apologize to my audience. This is somewhat unprofessional, but I got multiple things going on. Got run a business or two. So Saludin El Rahim says masculine energy called Bernard. Yeah, I'm about to drop the link in the chat if I don't see Obsidian pretty soon. I'll get Keith up here on this topic. Because I got a thing or two going on. Hell, we at the 30-minute mark. 30 minutes, that's a whole diatribe. So yeah, it's about time to open it up. I don't know if the old man coming or not. I'm just double checking right now to make sure I did my part of actually sending that link. And yes, I did send the link. So he should have the link. He should be popping up, but he's not here. So I got to put this. Okay, he is here. All right, I apologize. I didn't expect to get those phone calls. I got distracted by the task shit. And I had an important business call to make. Well, to answer. And so we're here right now. Obsidian, can you hear me?
Hey, what's going on, man?
What is going on? What's going on? Another day at the office.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here. I was taking care of some other business myself, so
Definitely understand.
yeah, take the trash out and all that sort of stuff. So okay, ready to rock and roll. So
well,
I heard some of your opening diatribe, I guess you could call it, and I see it starting to catch on. And yeah, and I heard the part about interracial dating and mating and that sort of thing. So
yeah, I took that approach with it, even though you took a completely different approach in your article that sort of inspired this this topic, where more or less the question in the title, why aren't good black men and women getting together? And you wrote something really nice in your newsletter. Well, I wouldn't say really nice, but I enjoyed the read. I don't know if it was nice. That's probably not the probably not the right way to word it. But I definitely enjoyed the read when you broke down your take and your perspective, and you alluded to Kevin Samuel's Facebook page when you talk about all the rigmarole, if that's the right word, that it seems as if the educated, sophisticated, upper class or upper middle class black people go through to try to foster or create the environment where they can come together and all of that. And it's just, it was funny when you said it just seemed like too much damn work. So it's like what's going on here? But you had your conclusions about that. So yeah, I'll pass the mic to you to expand or elaborate on why you believe that black men, the good black men and good black women, are not getting together.
well, I mean, in a word, they're not sexually attracted to each other. I think that's something that when I wrote about this, well, let me back up and say it this way, because you mentioned Kevin Samuels, so I call him Saint Kevin. So earlier this month, he started a discussion group on Facebook called The Mix, and the idea it's ill-defined, to be brutally frank. I think that Kevin needs to be a bit more precise in writing as to what The Mix is all about. It's just my personal opinion. But nevertheless, that aside, the if you're a fly on the wall there, it's essentially more or less let me put it this way. This is how black professionals put it. It is a social mixer, a virtual social mixer, right? So the idea is that, if you're a black professional, you get together and you network and you do this and you do that. And, but what it really amounts to is a de facto mating ground, right? I've been attending these events as something of I refer to myself as a blue collar alien, because, blue collar guys, and it is going to be guys for the most part. Very few black women work in blue collar profession or jobs or what have you. They're not very welcome in these spaces. One of the reasons why I can kind of, slip by it is because I'm blue collar in profession, and you could say temperament, I guess you could say, but in every other way I could pass as a black professional. I speak like one, I write like one, I have all the affects of one, I dress like one. So, in many ways, it gives me a kind of camouflage, I guess you could say, or an ability to kind of slide into these spaces. And ever since, and I use the cult film classic Love Jones, circa 1997. I use that as a kind of benchmark starting point for all of this. And so for the past 2 decades, off and on, I've been attending these events in real time. The Mix is the first time I've ever done it virtually. And what I have found over the years is that the success rate of these social mixers for black professionals, success defined as couples getting together is very low. And what I am suggesting shouldn't be taken as the definitive reason or answer, but I think it's a factor in the mix that we don't, let me put it this way, for whatever reason is not broached. I was going to say we don't want to talk about, but that would be a bit too on the nose. So let me put it this way. For whatever reason it's not discussed, for whatever the reason may be. I'm just going to focus on the outcomes. A number of black people were kind of hand-wringing over the notion of good. By good black men and good black women, I'm meaning professionals, good people. They're not, out tearing up society. Come on. The thing with that cracks me up with black folks is that anytime we start getting on something that may be potentially sensitive and hit home, all of a sudden we want to start playing whack-a-mole. That depends on what your definition of is, to use, an infamous line from Bill Clinton and that sort of thing. So by good, I mean, decent, law-abiding black folk who are black professionals, okay? And I had noticed that, and coming from a blue-collar background where there are no social mixers, unless you want to, count, the local tap room nuisance bar or, your hole in the wall, club or something like that, nightclub type of thing. If you want to make the case that is the analog to the professional social mixer, so be it. But in the main, black blue working class and underclass black folks don't require all of these hoops to jump through to get with each other. And the proof of that is the babies. Now not to say that, the working and underclass of black America don't have their problems. They most certainly do. No doubt about it. But the point that I'm getting at here is that demography is destiny. The future belongs to those who show up for it. And the simple truth, nobody wants to talk about this in black America, and I understand the reasons why. But nobody wants to talk about the fact that the next generations of black America are not coming from the best and the brightest of us. They're coming from the working and underclass. And it raises some very interesting questions. And I think one of the reasons why we have so much angst and anxiety among this class, right here in the black manosphere, it's manifested in the Pookie and Ray Ray debate, right? If you listen to black women's response to that here in the black manosphere, or if you just go to the wider social media space, Facebook and so forth, it's expressed as the Instagram model, right? And, when you think of the black middle class and, you don't really think of sexuality. You think of the working and underclass. That's among the first things that come to instantly to mind. Let's be honest. Hip hop, which is at present over the past 30 plus years, been black America's most dominant cultural export, right? That's a key component of hip hop. Is first and foremost the hypersexual masculine sexuality. And then, you have black women that are part and parcel of the hip hop experience. And once again, there's that driving sexuality. So, on both sides, there's a lot of anxiety and angst around this, and what these archetypes represent coming from working and underclass black America, And I think one major reason why it's so difficult for the black professional class to get together is because there's not a lot in the way of a sexual spark, and you're not supposed to really talk about that,
Well,
yeah.
Well, let me ask this question then. How do I set this one up? Okay.
And before you do that, if I may, because we're in the black manosphere, And I need to say this. I wrote another. I wrote another, like I call them my daily musings of the day.
Mm-hmm.
And another one, and it was a spinoff of what we're talking about right now. So we may be even able to come back and do a live show on this, called "The Plight of the Black Plain Jane."
Yep, I read that one too.
You know, a lot of black men in these spaces are not going to like what I'm going to say, and I understand why. Yes, there's a there with black middle class black women having a penchant for, lack of a better way of putting it, the Pookie and Ray Ray. All right. There's something to be said for that. It's not a term of science, more art. You know, we can't sit down and plot this out, you know, empirically. Okay. We can't do a, you know, we can't do a double bind study on this. Okay. But yeah, there's something to be said about it in impressionistic terms. Okay. But I think we would not be fair if we weren't willing to admit that a lot of us ain't really, when I say us, I'm talking about the black professional guy. We're not interested in the plain Janes of Black America either, if we want to be honest. And, you know, Instagram doesn't lie. You know, I mean, you know, there are models, and we all know what I'm talking about here, that have followers easily in the hundreds of thousands, if not millions.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And all of them to a man black. And yeah, they're brothers from, you know, the underclass and the working class there. But come on, fellas, if we're going to do this, let's at least be honorable about it. A lot of the middle class brothers are there too. And I think that's the reason why I framed it the way that I did. I didn't just say, why aren't good black men, you know, I said good black men and women, because it's a situation on both sides. And yeah, we can talk about the plain Janes gunning for the Shamar Moores and all that. That's true. I'm not saying it's not. But fellas, I mean, come on. We have to be honest. It ain't like the brothers are falling down trying to get with them either. They're not. Proof by the fact that 40% of black women today are single and childless, man. See, we talk a lot about baby momism, and for good reason. For good reason. But we leave out the black women. I mean, they're almost like invisible in a very real sense. But I mean, if we're going to proceed on the basis of reason and evidence, then we would be at the very least remiss, if not intellectually dishonest, to leave this fact out. 40% of black women today are single and childless, man. I'm not saying all of them are black plain Janes. I'm not saying all of them want to get married. I'm not saying all of them want a man. But what I am saying is that a lot of them are. You know, the Stacey Abrahamses of the world. I mean, she lost in a major election 2 years ago. She's still got a major following. Well, how do you explain that? For someone to be basically a loser. And yet she's still got a major following on a national stage. How do you explain that? I explain it by the fact that she is representative of this 40% of black women, single, childless, highly educated, smart. But the Kevin Samuelses of the world, it's not going to happen. And she knows it. I think there's something to be said about that.
All right, you said a few things. You talked about the plain Jane and how black men are not necessarily beating down the door to get to them, but we just saw some real good piece of evidence with Kevin Samuels, how he's talking to a prototypical plain Jane. I don't think like that woman was the poster child for plain Jane, and she had a relationship with a guy who she said wasn't ambitious enough, but as Kevin Samuels quite often explains, is his income probably matched how you look. And yes. And so she felt like she was supposed to be able to do better. She was mentioning a guy anywhere from 150 to 300,000. So I think guys are okay. I'm even hearing it right here in the chat. The guys are okay and interested in plain Jane chicks, because I think guys have a healthy understanding of where they're at. And nothing wrong with a plain Jane, long as she's, easy to get along with. Now, yes, Instagram models look good. Don't get that twisted. Yeah, a lot of us are there, and we subscribed and we follow, and we look at the pictures and watch the little videos, and it's good eye candy of some well assembled pixels on the screen of our phone. But reality is reality. The good, decent, easy to get along with woman who happens to be, plain Jane, who happens to be, average, and the average guy is going to get with the average woman, and if they can get along, and I think the average guy can be happy in that situation. So I don't think that it's.
How do you explain? Okay, so how do you explain? How do you explain something somewhere over 50% of, black men single and childless today? How do you explain the single biggest cohort of confirmed bachelors 40 and over being black men? How do you explain, again, Instagram, the millions of likes and share? Listen, I get where you're going and where many brothers in this venue are going with the anecdote from Kevin's show the other night. I get it. There's a there. But we have to be honest, man. A lot of us, I'm not in that group. That is to say, I'm not in the, black professional group by definition. But I've often said words to this effect. I know for a fact that there are good people. Like, I don't think Stacey Abrams is a bad human being, man. She's not evil. She's not. I disagree with her. I think she's wrong about a lot of policy things, but she's not evil. She's not a bad human being. And in fact, I've known people like a Stacey. I'm just using that as a you get where I'm going with this.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, I'm just not sexually attracted to her. That's all it is. That's all it is. And I think saying something like that is very difficult for a lot of black people because we're still wedded to the cause. Many of us still, there's this idea. I remember watching a tape of Frances Quest Welsing, right? And she was talking about how black love was a revolutionary act. Now, for someone of her generation, I could understand that. That made sense. She's from Chicago, born in the 30s. I get all of that. I get it. But that just doesn't work today. A lot of black people are very difficult with the idea that racism is dead. Yes, we have incidents here and there. And I call them the racial incident of the week.
Right.
I
agree with that part.
We kind of run from incident to incident. There's a reason for that. Because if you took racism off the table, what else is there to hold us together now?
Yeah. I'm with you on the racial incident of the week. I'm with you on the notion that people are clinging and holding on to the racism. Like, there are situations where the racism don't even gotta be that much. I mean, so what? A Karen is questioning you about whether or not you actually live in that apartment. You would rather record it and be on camera looking weak, arguing with some cat lady for 10 minutes just so you can say, look, racism, instead of just doing what you would have did pre-cell phone recorded era and just brush on by her, move, bitch, get out the way, and then going into use your key and walk into your apartment, close the door. Like, that's how that would have got handled 20 years ago. But now they got to record it and got to broadcast it and then got to go live and do a follow-up about the racism. And it's like, it's shit. Is just...
And there's a really good book by Eugene Robinson. He wrote this a decade ago called Disintegration, the Splintering of Black America. And he talks about this in the book, that as Black America, and he separates Black America into 4 distinct groups. And using his schema, he says that as Black America continues to come apart along these lines and form up into these four distinct groups, you know, politicians and other cultural leaders, right? Thought leaders, intellectuals, they're going to ramp up this whole racism because that's the only thing that keeps us together anymore. That's what defined us as people. You know, was slavery, was Jim Crow, was discrimination. And, you know, I like to, you know, look at it through the lens of Shelby Steele, who said that, you know, the shock of freedom, we're still dealing with the shock of freedom. And it's scary. Well, for one reason, because what happens if you fail? Whose fault is it then? See, you know, we always have a convenient out for failure now. It's called racism. But what happens when that's no longer on the table and you fail? Who do you blame then?
Right. David Johnson says the problem is so-called good blacks aren't dating each other because they keep trying to date down because we've been taught not to value ourselves. Thank you very much for that super chat, David Johnson. And y'all can also hit the like button if you haven't already. The likes are never where they ought to be. We're at 75 right now. No reason why we shouldn't be at 100. Let's get those likes up. People. Let's see. Where was we at? You mentioned you alluded to the whole Pookie and Ray Ray thing, and I'm not in full agreement with everything that you're laying out. But when you talked about the Pookie and Ray Ray thing, that, you know, and that was around the time I remember I was really first getting into these discussions that take place here in Black YouTube. So when you started really presenting the Pookie and Ray Ray versus Educated Lame and all of that, I was naive enough at the time to think that the response from Black women in these spaces would have been somewhere along the lines of educated Black men. Great, we're in. Where they at? That sounds good to me. Let's go. You know, I honestly was naive enough to think that, okay, we far enough along in this thing that would be the response. I had no idea that I was going to hear the same women who talked cash shit about income and all of that saying, well, just because you have an education and a job that gives you good income, well, how does that make you a viable mate, even though the lack of income was the number one reason that argued that Black men were not viable mates. It blew me away when we went to talking about, you know, the educated upper class Black men and how 30% of them are marrying out. How you know, there are educated, higher earning brothers, middle class, single, childless. I was shocked at the reaction right there at ground zero of the Pookie and Ray Ray versus Educated Lame discussion. I was seriously shocked. I mean, I'm not shocked no more. I've gotten numb to a lot of this shit, but I was shocked. I had no idea that it was going to be a damn near violent reaction to it. And so I think that sort of speaks to some degree to what you're saying, that either a lack of attraction or it very well could be they're arguing the way that they're arguing in terms of that, just because they have to hold on to. It's like they made a bed, they got to lay in it, they got to stand in it. You know, it could be a stand in it thing. Don't want to concede to their bad choices and concede to Black manosphere talking points, one or the other. But I don't know. It was so that part is where I can agree with you that it is either some kind of attraction thing or just a failure to admit, you know, defeat. One or the other. I don't know.
Okay, so kind of complicated when it comes to Black women because, in my opinion, well, let me try to sum it up this way, and we can return to it at some other time. With regard to, and I'll use as a touchstone, the CJ King and B. Simone incidents. Right? Mm-hmm. Black women have painted themselves into a corner. Now, what do I mean by that? Black women, in the guise of their advocates in the media, to a large extent, academia, to a large extent, the media, and so forth, have gotten a lot of gas out of the idea that there is a existential crisis in Black America for Black women insofar as a dearth of eligible Black men are concerned. Black men on the down low, Black men in jail, Black men not, being successful, not learning, not going to college, and so forth, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now, that has been a one-sided argument for decades. Here comes the Black manosphere. And along with it, social media, where the rank and file Black man, like a CJ King, can now speak in his own voice and be heard potentially by tens of thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people, possibly millions. And we got a situation now where they're coming to the fore and presenting a powerful counterpoint to this multi-decades narrative that Black women have enjoyed. No reasonable, thoughtful person, after looking at the CJ King and B. Simone debacles, could then go and side rationally with Black women on that. As a matter of fact, in the case of CJ King, a law school graduate, he essentially cited chapter and verse the talking points Black women themselves have used over the past 3 decades.
Yep.
Chapter and verse. I mean, you can't rationally argue against that. I think the problem that a lot of Black women have is that on the one side, they're contending with what I just described. Black manosphere, rank and file Black men taking advantage of the tools of social media. On the other hand, they're coming to grips with their own sexual desires in a way that makes them feel uncomfortable because it rubs up against the very thing that I just mentioned. Now, wait a minute. How can you say that, the number one issue is lack of income? Then you get guys that lack of income and they're this, that. Wait a minute. Black men don't have that problem per se. Black men for whom it applies. I'm not saying all Black men here. We're talking about the professional Black men.
Mm-hmm.
And here I cite Don't Blame It on Rio by Jewel Woods 12 years ago. You want a SYSBM manifesto document? That would be it. A lot of Black men in that cohort, they too don't want to admit that a lot of sisters in that class, though good people, they really don't want to bang. But the implications of saying that could prove disastrous. You have to remember, if you're a Black professional guy, you got to work with the Stacey Abramses of the world. See, it's different from me as a blue-collar brother. As a blue-collar brother, like at least 90% of my 22-year career was spent among other men. Black men, white men, Hispanic men. Very little of my 22-year career on a job entailed having to work with women of any race, especially Black women. So that afforded me a sense of, and I never thought of it this way, but I've been doing, this coronavirus gives you a lot of time to think, right? So, being locked up in the crib, right? So, I had to come to a conclusion that in a lot of ways, as ironic as this is going to sound, in a lot of ways, I'm kind of privileged because, especially in relation to my professional brothers, because, they have to interface with Black women in a way that I never did. And even to this day, after my retirement, I'm a very young retiree. If I retired today at 51, I'd still be a very young retiree, to say nothing at 40. But even today in my second act as a social media personality, I can pretty much, pick and choose when I want to interact with Black women. That's not true if you're a Black professional man. If you work in law, finance, medicine, politics, nonprofit, I mean, you just can't pick and choose when you want to interface with Black women. I mean, that just comes with the job. And you learn very early on what to say and what not to say, which was just never an issue for me then or now. So, a lot of black men in that space can't say what I can say. I can say, look, man, I know there's a lot of good black women out there. I just don't want to see them get naked. You can't be, excuse me, you can't be a professional like a Kevin Samuels type, say that and still keep your job.
Are you talking about black women of a certain age? Because I'm assuming that with I don't know with the, like, for example, Kevin Samuels mix, his Facebook page.
And what I mean by that, Kevin Samuels is,
well, yeah, go ahead. Yeah,
the Kevin Samuels corporate sales guy, the Kevin Samuels big law guy, the Kevin Samuels federal government apparatchik guy, the Kevin Samuels municipal government guy, the Kevin Samuels big nonprofit guy, the Kevin Samuels healthcare field guy, healthcare medical sales, shit like that. You get the idea. You can't say that and still keep your job. And how do I know that's true? How do you think? I got guys like Kevin Samuels who pay my bills, man. They never come on the air. They never comment. They just silently write checks every month. And they write to me. And they tell me, yeah, the reason why I'm supporting you is because you can say things I can't say.
Sir Tice. Holy shit, I gotta. You got those moments where you're about to sneeze, but then the sneeze don't come, but you just sit there. That just happened to me. It was like,
oh yeah,
I'm sitting there winding up for a sneeze, and then it never came. But anyway, all right, Sir Tice. More than ever, Blackistan gets his cues from media. This hinders many ability to identify real sustainable traits versus surface traits. Thank you very much for the super chat. Hashtag pheromone soap. What you talking about? But anyway, thank you for the super chat. I appreciate that. And my man Caesar D1 came through. He said the racism is dead crowd is just as myopic as the racism is holding me back crowd. Interesting. Both are extremes. You can become successful in this country in spite of racism. Also, you are naive if you think racism is dead. Those are interesting points. Thank you for the super chat. That's something. That's a whole show topic. I told you before. Sometimes we be super chatting whole show topics. So that's interesting. That's interesting. I like the way you put that there. I like the way you put that. Fatal Dose, the Sage says that's why I'm anonymous. Thank you for the super chat. Thank you for the super chat. So okay, let's see. Okay, so Kevin, I keep going back to Kevin's mix. Do you get in there? Is it like professional men and younger, or is it like the female aspect of that? Is it like the younger, hotter women that want to get the the older professional men, or is it like people in their 30s with careers and
it's like I said, it's an ill-defined. To be fair, it's still new. It's maybe a month old.
Okay.
So all the bylaws, I guess you could say, haven't been hammered out yet. But just my impressions. There's no official census or anything like that. But just my general impressions. I get the impression that the median age of a black woman there is mid to late 20s. I could be maybe hovering around 30, maybe.
Okay.
There are black women that are older, but they're at the tails of the distribution. But the median, I would say, mid to late 20s. As for the guy, and all professionals. As for the guys, the majority professional. I'm the blue collar guy. I'm an outlier. There's another blue collar brother that I saw there. So we would be the outliers, to tell you the truth. The vast majority of the group are black professional, college educated and so forth. As far as the guys go, they will skew older, of course. So you would have guys in their 20s that are on the tails, and the median age, I would say late 30s.
Mm-hmm.
Guys my age, in their 50s, late 40s through 50s, I would say we're on the tail end of the distribution as well. I would say the fat part of the bell curve would be late 30s. Yeah.
Okay. And in your assessment, because I don't know how much you are applying your analysis strictly to the mix, but are you saying, is your assessment that a lot of the men there aren't really that attracted to the women, or vice versa?
Well, it's too early to say.
Okay.
It's a very interesting event went down yesterday that I just wrote about this morning. And when you check your email, you'll see it because I posted it as a newsletter. Very interesting event went down yesterday that I suspect, I can't prove it, I don't have any empirical data, but I suspect, based on my experiences over the past few decades, I suspect the events of yesterday may very well have an impact on the trajectory of this group going forward. We'll see if I'm right. But as it currently stands,
you don't want to talk about those events on the air, or no?
Well, I would rather you get a chance to sit down and read it first.
Oh, okay.
You can make a judgment. But as far as the current situation with Kevin's group, I think it's still in the initial feeling out phase. I've noticed that black professionals don't approach things the way that black underclass and working class folks do. There in that cohort, mating happens pretty quickly. Whereas among the black professional cohort, there's a protracted period of, feeling each other out and, small talk and, and all that sort of thing, which, I'm going to invoke his name so he may show up. Alan Roger Curry it puts his mode 1 into context.
Mm-hmm.
Because he comes from that background, and it gave me a better insight into him and the backstory of mode 1. Because if you're a guy like him, that's just, that's part of the core. You gotta feed each other out, and you gotta do, you gotta go through the motions of the small talk, all the rest of it. So I can understand why. Now, for me, that was just never a consideration. And for a lot of blue collar guys, it's just not a consideration. And to be fair, a lot of the women of that cohort, things happen very quickly.
Yeah. No, I'm noticing a lot of people saying they're not getting my notifications. You don't get it. Just start looking for me around between 9 and 9:15, somewhere around there. 9:20, 9:30 sometimes. Well, yesterday I went on at 10 o'clock. But yeah, normally between 9 and 10, if you just look for me, you should find me. I normally will be on sometime after 9 a.m. EST. But thank you for the super chat. I appreciate that. And I saw Jedi Mac in the chat. He said he didn't get my notifications either. So yeah. Y'all know what time to start looking. Just start looking for me around that time. Let's see what we're doing on the likes, fellas. We finally closing in on 100. I know it's some new people that just came in, like Counselor Murray. Probably forgot to hit the like button. So go ahead and take this time now to hit the like button. I'll even take a couple thumbs down if that's how you feel. Go ahead and express yourself through the thumbs up or the thumbs down. But yeah, it's interesting stuff. Like I've never agreed with you on the how you always say it's plenty of good women out there. You just don't want to see them good naked. I've always had a view, and maybe I have more pie in the sky liberal view of it. But I've always said, hey, if you get a bunch of ugly women, it's going to be some good women and bad women among them. You get a bunch of average looking women, It will be good women and bad women good people and bad people among them. Get a bunch of really attractive women. There will be good people and bad people among them. Now, I don't know if the distribution of the good people and bad people are higher amongst those that are less attractive when it comes to women, and not quite as high when it comes to those who are average. But when it comes to those who are really attractive, then, they all just out there just bad-witted, just hot girl summer, can't sit still, don't know how to act. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I've never looked at it strictly that way. I've always felt that it was a fairly even distribution of good people and bad people, regardless of looks. Now, I do think we're something that does have to get averaged into the equation. I think especially on the male end, and this is sort of in your wheelhouse, a good looking man will have a lot of options to the point to where it's less likely that he's going to be that prototypical, monogamous guy that a lot of women claim that they want. It's less likely that he will be that. The more select he is, unless he just has some really strong, whether beliefs or just moral compass about it, it's less likely. Because there's a lot of attractive, good looking and tall guys who are happy and monogamous. That's true. They exist. But chances are that guy who has all those options, his life is going to go on a different course. It's going to have a completely different trajectory when it comes to dealing with women, because he's always had a wide variety. So, but with women, I don't know. I know you've been sort of banging that drum that, the unattractive chicks are the good women, are the ones who conduct themselves well and would probably be good wives, and the hotter ones are the ones that are problematic. Now, I feel that when I say problematic, I mean that they typically don't conduct themselves the way that you typically would like a wife material woman to conduct herself. Now, I've always said this, that the reason that you do that is really just you're setting them up for a counterpunch. The reason you do that is because you're just trying to get women to say that there are plenty of good men out there. I know that those good men exist. I'm superficial and shallow, and I just don't want them.
Well, that's exactly what I'm doing. That's exactly what I'm doing.
Yeah, I know. So,
and the conspicuous silence in response really is a response. See, a lot of black women just can't bring themselves to say that because they know that this is what I keep saying to a lot of black men. Black women in general, you just work with me on this for a minute. Women in general are, and we can debate whether it's nature or nurture, but however it shakes itself out, women as a general proposition are much more socially aware than men are. Okay. As a general rule. A lot of black women would know the implications of just saying that outright. It will undermine their entire narrative. It will completely undermine it. At a time when black men who do have social skill, social awareness, verbal facility, good communication skill, good writing skill, able to appeal to masses, at a time when this is happening. I mean, black women know this. As a matter of fact, a lot of black women kind of trade on the idea that most black men just aren't that socially attuned or verbally facile. A lot of black women really, play on that. Mm-hmm. They know that few black men can go toe to toe with them in that respect. They know that. And why they assiduously avoid the black men who can read yours truly. Because they know how to hem them up in the corner and just, they know it.
I see.
So yeah, when I say that, it is a setup. And that's the point. I freely admit that I'm a shallow and frivolous SOB. I'm free. That's what I'm really saying. I am free. And part of being free is being shallow and frivolous. If you can't be shallow and superficial, you ain't free. But being free means responsibility. You can't blame racism anymore. You can't blame this ism or that ism anymore. It's on you. Black women know that. Which is the reason why you have black women on the Oprah Winfrey Network, for God's sake, actually saying with a straight face that the president of the United States is the reason why they're morbidly obese. And it's taken seriously. I say what I say because I'm free. Black women can't say what they say because if they do, they don't want to admit that they're free.
Why do it seem like so many black people have this vested interest in, and I've heard you speak on this, but I mean, you're setting it up for for another round of it. This vested interest in clinging. I don't even know. I don't know how to word it. I don't know how to put it, because we've been down this road before, and that racism piece is like it's hard to shake it. It takes over. It ends up taking over every every discussion.
It's very easy. It's a very easy explanation for personal problems in your life.
Yeah.
If you come from a very difficult family background, you can blame racism for it. If you're unable to have the control to be disciplined with diets, as I just demonstrated a minute ago, you can blame racism for it. If you're not, where you want to be in your life, you can blame racism for it. I mean, that is where we're getting here. That is what we're coming to here. Whether people want to admit it or not, that's where we're getting at. Especially if you're female. See, you got to be careful with it if you're male. If you're a certain type of male, you can get away with it. That's the reason why you notice all these racial incidents always involve black men of sketchy backgrounds. It's rarely your prototypical Carlton Banks type, Steve Urkel type getting just, hemmed up out of nowhere. That rarely happens. It's always black men on the periphery or on the margin somehow.
Mm-hmm.
And it can always be blamed on racism. Were it not for racism, he'd be the next, W.E.B. Du Bois or something. So black men are kind of constrained from using that, kind of Swiss Army knife to an extent. You got to be real careful with it. But for black women, it's a go-to device. I had speaking of the mixed group, I had and that was the reason why I did the Plain Jane post. It was in direct response to this. I had a sister try to argue me down in his group that colorism was keeping her and black women like her from getting black men like Kevin. Yeah. And I just had it up to here with that. I said, this is what I'm gonna do. So check this out. So I'm 51. I've been listening to this the bluest eye argument for decades. And I know the reason why black women are doing it. They're trying to shame and cajole the black men they want to want them. And it's not working. It doesn't work. Fat shaming will not work. Ask Lizzo. You can't handle a strong black woman. It won't work for a certain strata of black men. They're never going to tell you because, like I said, They got to work with you. But their actions will speak louder than any words they can convey. It will not work. And what I said to this sister, I said, listen, do you think that, I said, at what, I told her, I said, I can't remember exactly how I put it, but I said, I'm no leading man. And black women are keen to let me know it. But that can't be an excuse for not getting on with the rest of my life. Black men like me don't have the luxury of making our personal crosses to bear a cause celeb. And we really only have two options. We really only have two. Either accept the black women who will take you or drop out. The reason why, and I'm going to bring in C Boogie now. The reason why, we're having this tete-a-tete over self-improvement is because that's the whole point of why I do what I do. It's to prove that if you're a certain type of brother, it won't make much difference. You can fight a good fight. You can fight valiantly. But in the final accounting, it will not move the needle. You know what losers call that? A moral victory. Champions don't talk about moral victories. It's one of the many pretty lies we tell ourselves to make ourselves feel better about the fucked up aspects of life. I choose not to deal with that. I choose to deal with life head on. I know I'm going to die. And I know I'm going to die without a wife. So the onus is on me to look out for myself. For everything. It sucks, but it's life.
And I think that also, again, you saying that, and I'm getting to the point where, well, I'm pretty good at knowing that there's a method to the madness and some madness to the method whenever you're saying something. But I know the reason that you're saying that, well, not the reason. Well, I mean, you're saying it because, it's probably true. But also, when you flip that around to black women, that goes back to what you say with them when you ask, do you have a hospice plan? You're essentially saying that a lot of them also in that same shape, in that same condition, and everything as far as their life and their trajectory. And you're one of the first ones that actually talk about the outcomes and the end game of it all, and dying alone. That's something that that doesn't exactly come up in these discussions. You're not going to hear a Derek Jackson type, talking about self-loving yourself to death, literally.
Yeah, I mean, it's a real interesting thing. He's not alone in this, but the simple truth is, and I was talking about this last night. Interestingly enough, about Kevin's group. I'm just gonna go ahead and say this. Kevin's group has been a fount of research for me. It's in a way it's a laboratory of sorts. And I was talking about this with an older sister last night. She's in her late 30s. I was talking with her about this last night, and I said, look, as she rightly pointed out that, I'm something of an outlier in that group, in terms of age, in terms of, marital status. I'm a confirmed bachelor. So, many of the guys there aren't yet confirmed bachelors, and many of the guys there would like to marry. Mm-hmm. I conceded that point. But I also brought up the next point that while I may be an outlier in that particular group, I'm very much in the mainstream of Black America. And at some point, we got to have this conversation, man. At some point.
Brian Tolbert, thank you for the $20 super chat. He says, well, AKA Mr. Bowtie. You throwing that government name out there. I see you. He says, I date out, unfortunately. You don't got to say unfortunately with that, but he says, I date out, unfortunately. Black women around my area don't talk to guys in suits and bow ties outside of work. That's interesting. That's interesting. I would think that wouldn't necessarily be the case, but be that as it may.
There's a lot of counterintuitive. We were just talking about this a minute ago with the CJ King and B Simone thing. There's a lot of counterintuitive elements at work here.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of go against the grain of what we were talking about. And I personally think the reason why is because, I've noticed, doing this dating coach thing, you refer to me as a dating scientist, which I really like, by the way. I take it to heart. I've noticed that our white and specifically Jewish and Asian counterparts use the tools of the academy to help them better understand this dating and mating thing and to solve problems and make better decisions. And I know the complete utter absence of that in Black America, even among, and even perhaps it's better to say, especially among the best and the brightest, if you will. I've been pursuing that, why that is. I have a couple theories, but just noting the fact that it's like night and day. I mean, that really says something. It says something about our priorities. It's, Jews and Asians prioritize education, and not just as a means to get a job or as a means to have something to brag about when you go to a mixer. Or a means to make a lot of money. I'm not saying that those elements aren't in the mix, but it's clear that they value it for more than that. I don't see that among the black middle class. I don't. I just don't. And it's expressed in the writing. It's expressed in the media, the social media, and all the rest. It really does raise some interesting questions.
Yeah. Hey, you guys in the chat going back and forth about politics and whatnot. I'm gonna I haven't emailed him back yet, but I told the guy who was on my show, Little Big Nate. Obsidian knows who he is. I didn't know much about him, but he came on my show and did a real good job. Told him to email me, so yeah, I'll bring him back, and he's gonna. We're going to be talking about politics. It was going to be, a mix of the normal stuff where we'll be talking about women. I think his rhetoric is, is geared around Black women getting so strongly in cahoots with the Democratic Party and all of that, and that will veer off into a good political discussion. And Black Torch, when I get that one going, I do want you to come up because I think you would have some disagreement with him. I know David Monroe. I think David Monroe will be on his side, but yeah, I can kind of put it in the hoister because we're going to do a whole show similar, geared around what y'all are essentially arguing about. So let's y'all can put that in the holster a little bit. We're gonna do a show on that. We will. Caesar D1. All right, he says I gotta be petty. Bill Cosby was a leader of the racism is dead crowd. Upon his release, they should make him reread the pound cake speech for the irony of it. Yeah, you being petty.
Yeah, to go back to that for a minute, because I mean, for a lot of Black people, it's a very, okay. So this is what I say to guys like Caesar D1. He's a successful man.
Mm-hmm.
And there are many Black men like him that want to argue me down about this. And these guys, they live lives that wasn't possible for my grandfather, for yours, for theirs. I mean, what are they fighting so hard for? Why?
I think a lot of successful black people they look back and they gotta have a reason as to why their people are not doing as good as they probably should. And I think racism is a easy place to point because
Again, I didn't hear you. Say that again.
I think a lot of successful black people they they understand that yes, they're successful, they made it in this system, using air quotes in there. They made it in this system, but they got to have a reason or find a reason why other people that look like them have not succeeded in this system, and they point right back to the racism. Now, I won't go as far to say racism is dead.
So you're suggesting a kind of survivor's guilt.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I said about Silent, and he conceded the point. Given his background, given where he came from, we can understand.
Here's what I would say to that. Here's what I would say to that. If indeed this is how black, for whom it applies, if indeed there are black men who feel this way, please allow me to suggest the following solution. You can be an inspiration to other black men, to other black boys, about what's possible. You can inspire them by your example.
Mm-hmm.
They could benefit from your experience, from your knowledge. If you really want to make a difference, that's the way to do it.
Yeah. And that's important. And Caesar D responded down there. He says, I agree. Oh man, I work hard. I got no complaints, but I will not bury my head in the sand. Yeah.
Okay. So the way to, fair enough. So the way to do it is to use your resources, your skills, your experience, your knowledge, and help other black boys see what's possible through you.
Yeah. Silent Lamont says, Bernard, I am under no illusion that I am an anomaly of nature. Though, bruh, most people are not going to be able to pull off the hat trick I did. And that's true.
They certainly won't if you don't actually get involved with them. They most certainly won't. If you want to make a difference, I'm telling you how. See, there's something else at work here. There's something else. And I'm trying to find out what that is.
We need to hear more of a you can do it too message than a white man holding you down message. And that's why you're not doing it. I think that's the point that Obsidian is making. And that's, that's where I'm at with it when it comes to a lot of really successful black people who are still talking about racism. And look, I'll concede that I don't go as far to say racism is dead because, well, there's some racist people, but it ain't nothing it's not going to stop a driven person from succeeding in America. That's where I'm at with it. There are some individuals who are racist, and if an individual who happens to be racist happens to, move up in a company and he does the hiring, well, then that company, that may not be your path. But if that racism get too strong in that company, they'll have a lawsuit and they'll end up paying out a lot of money to the people that they discriminated against. We've seen that happen plenty of times. So the system itself, the core of the system isn't racist, but people are racist and tribal, and if the wrong racist tribal people get in the just in the right spot, then yeah, they'll do some things.
I'm looking at Keith in the background. He's saying it's the policies. All right. What are you doing about it? I tell you what I'm doing about policy. I give money to causes that are important to me. I'm active in the Republican Party. I mean, look, you can go ahead and rail against that, but I'm doing something. You may disagree with me. That's fair. But at least I'm doing something. You say, Keith, that you can't teach what you did. Well, I disagree because I could teach what I did. I can most certainly teach what I can make what I did replicable. I'm unique, but I'm not something that can't be scaled. And look at Keith's topic. What am I doing about it? Nothing. I already did what I needed to do. I'm enjoying my life, and this is the conversation you brought up. See, that's what I'm talking about. Keith, you just want to be heard. And it's okay. I want to be heard too. That's why I do what I do. But you have to ask, which way works better? Yours or mine?
Yeah, Keith, I hear you. I was about to drop the link. I was planning on wrapping it up at the 2 hour mark. We at the 1 hour, 38 minute mark. So yeah, I was going to drop the link, but I don't want to get into a back and forth about this topic. You wanted the link for the actual topic, because we have gotten off topic. And I want to, yeah, I don't feel like us going back and forth too strong and too tough on this one. Because like I said, when I get with Little Big Nate and me and him do a lead off, it's going to veer off more into that political side of things. But right now, hold on. Right now, what y'all got going on is what are you doing? I'm doing this. This is what I'm doing with this. That's going to devolve into a dick measuring contest, and I ain't trying to have that right now.
About that, it's about if you care about racism, if you think black men are being put upon unfairly, then the question has to be, what are you doing about it to remediate it? If that's your position. I mean, come on. And there's a brother in the chat room, Conservative Red Pill. He says, stop being a victim and being a socialist. All black people are not going to achieve success, even under the best of conditions.
Wow.
That's life.
That's true.
That's life. That's just life, man.
A lot of poor white people who supposedly got the best of conditions, they ain't achieving a lot. That's most white people.
All I can do is be an example of what's possible, of what can be. That's all I can do.
That's real shit there, Caesar D1. He says, my personal cause that I will support is black male media, and I will purchase all 3 of your books when released. If I can, pre-order, drop the link. Now, that's real shit, because Caesar D1 drops a lot of money on
I'm not, and I'm very thankful for it, but I'm talking about this issue of racism, because a lot of brothers get upset with me about this, and I hear it. But I'm sorry, racism just isn't a factor in my life. Now, you're not supposed to say that if you're black, but I'm sorry, racism just isn't a factor in my life. And it's not because I made it so. Remember when a couple weeks back when I was railing against that Karen incident? Remember that?
Yeah. Yep.
I was able to do something about it. I was paying money out of my pocket to speak to black women. And when she interjected herself into it, I got her ass the fuck up out of there. Because I could. I'm sorry. I've ordered my life to such where racism is at best a minimal factor in my life. At best. That wasn't by happenstance. That was by my direct actions. and I can show others how to do the same. I just don't understand why it's so important for black men who, I mean, they're wildly successful. I just don't get why they have to do that. I don't understand it.
Because y'all bring it up.
Who brought it up on the George Floyd thing? Did I bring that up then? I wasn't even on the panel.
I respond to this general idea that why, because I made it, do I care? Because I do. Like, just like when you talk about BFF, when they ask you, why do you care? It's the same shit, man. I care.
And I put my money behind it, and I made a studio, and I made a brand, and I made a business.
That's fair, but I didn't bring up the conversation. I'm responding to the conversation.
To you again, when the George Floyd panel, of which you were a part of, Keith, you can't blame me.
I'm talking about this. I don't want to change. I'm talking about this. This is what we're talking about now. The question is, why is it either A, let me lay this out. The question basically is, Keith, you was able to do it. You got a black president. Michael Jordan's able to make millions of dollars. I've heard this argument. Okay. If you can have an Oprah, then why can't all you niggas do it? It's a disingenuous argument, man. Just because you can have some anomalies doesn't necessarily lead to another thing, man. That's another conversation. But the reason why I care, well, I wanted to tackle this. This is why I came up here. No, what you can teach is something tangible, Obsidian. The type of thing that I have had to go through, you can't teach. There is just something about me that was innate. Able to dip, dodge, know how to be in the right places, know how to understand my environments, know how to move, know when to move, make the right moves, make the right decisions, avoid these things, avoid all these traps. I can't even begin to explain to you. You can't even begin to compare your type of shit to my type of shit with respect. My type of shit is so fucking intangible, you can't put your fucking finger on it. I can't tell you to do this or do that. You just had to be me, be there, making these moves. You weren't there locked in a fucking room for months at a time. I mean, the type of shit that I went through would make you fucking cry. All right, so there ain't no shit you can teach to get out of the type of hole that I had to get out of completely fucking alone. Nobody, no help. So, to me, yes, I'm going to enjoy my life. I don't have a community. Nobody was there when I was calling out for help, locked in fucking rooms. Nobody came and got me. Nobody was there when I was damn near homeless. Nobody was there. I always had to figure out a way out of a fucking hole. So you know what? Whatever the community is, fuck, I'm here because I want everybody to fucking win. But I have no fucking community. Nobody ever gave me shit. So I am the ultimate selfless person. I could just ride off into the fucking sunset. But I do want brothers to win. But I know everything that's fucking in your path to get you there. I'm under no illusion. I'm saying brothers got to be strong despite all this bullshit they put in front of you. But I'm not going to be under no illusion that this shit don't exist, man. But do I think you can't make it either? No. You do live in a land of opportunity, man. But yes, there is obviously forces at play to specifically disadvantage black men. Yeah, that's fucking undeniable. But do you still have a responsibility to your own life to make it? Yes. But to deny shit that don't fucking exist, I can't tell you how to navigate shit if y'all denying shit even fucking exists in the first place. And I ain't gonna lead fucking young men down a path, them pretending, oh no, this don't exist. All right, y'all can be in the slaughterhouse if you want to. I know where I live at. I'm under no illusion that I need to be on my 10s and 2s when I'm driving around in these foreign cars. I understand where I'm at. I understand the way I need to behave when I go out in these malls. I understand that there's a different element in South Dallas than the way I behave out here in North Dallas. All right. So to pretend that I don't understand that, I mean, I would be lying, bro. That's my soapbox.
According to Paul G says, people have helped Keith. According to him, sharing a few weeks ago, they were mostly white.
Such as?
I don't know. I'm just reading the comment.
Yeah, I'd like to meet such. You mean the story I told about one time this guy bought me a baseball glove?
I don't know. I honestly don't know. But I do know this. I know
everyone's always trying to catch Keith in a lie. You can't, bro. I'm too honest, bro.
Okay. Well,
you can't gotcha me.
I like to ask, do you think that you're the only orphan that's made it out of a difficult situation?
No, that's a. Do I think I'm the only? No, of course not.
Okay, so that would then suggest.
No, the way that you're teeing up this question is disingenuous. I already know what you're doing. So I'm talking about the numbers. It is very, very extremely rare.
You can scale it.
Well, yeah. I mean, if you can just fucking Google the future of fucking foster kids, this isn't undeniable. Foster children do not have a history of having great outcomes, Obsidian. This is undebatable.
You can scale it.
Well, I think
this is unfucking debatable, Obsidian.
Scale it.
Hold on, Keith. I think a better point to make is that if you were in foster care and you had, the horrible start and you were able to make it as successful as you have, it's Black kids who don't have ideal conditions, but they have conditions not nearly as bad as yours. So the argument should be they can make it too. Maybe not as successful.
I didn't say they can't. My argument never was can't.
I know, but the argument shouldn't be talking as much about all the racism and white supremacy that's holding them back.
But when we're not always talking about this though. Like we talk about, when we have, like Keith will have a conversation about anything, right? Mm-hmm. But there are certain conversations that as soon as you bring them up, it's like, oh, you guys are always, most of the time we're talking about Black women. Then when we're not talking about Black women, we're always talking about racism. You know what I mean? Like, I don't like that whole, this was the argument that was brought up. If you make this argument about there's just something inferior about you people, then I need to bring up all the little intangibles, because it's not just Black people are just these inferior fucking people. We have very specific issues that have impacted Black American people in this country. To pretend like that shit doesn't matter or will have generational impacts, okay, as was their intent. The problems that Black people are dealing with are getting out of are generational. They are complex. So yes, to try to just oversimplify it down to, well, you can just, sure.
But who said anything about inferiority? I didn't say anything about inferiority.
I said it. I'm paraphrasing because I'm talking too.
Yeah, but we're talking about what I said and brought up.
Well, I'm paraphrasing basically the argument that you bring forth, because you kind of, we get into the BFF, but we kind of get into there's just something innately wrong with Black people argument. Black people just aren't smart. Black people just can't pick up nuance. Black people just don't understand math. Black people just aren't scientific like that. When Black people created math and fucking science.
Say that.
But that's Roger that. You didn't say that today, Obsidian, but that when I get on, I cringe because you get on the soapbox and you
started out. You said you were responding to what I said today.
That is correct, sir. That is correct, sir.
Most people blame and criticize the culture for the problems and the attitudes.
What culture? Black people don't have culture. What culture do Black people have in America that Caucasian people? You have American culture. You are this notion that you're not embedded in American culture is crazy to me. Like you live in some separate culture. Thomas, you don't have a fucking culture. You're homogenized into this American fucking conglomerate. Thomas, you live in a consumer. Black people are not any different than any other fucking people. You live in a consumer culture. Black people want the same thing everybody else wants.
Thomas Sowell talked about this in Black Rednecks, White Liberals. You might want to check it out if you haven't already.
I kind of have to. There, you make a lot of points, Keith, but one thing that I do disagree with is that Black people want the same thing that everybody else wants. I think one major thing that can be stated that Black people have shown that they don't want, that higher percentages of other people do want, is a functional family.
That's wrong. I would disagree. Hence the conversation that it actually delves back into what I was saying. We've proven that we wanted families naturally. Right out of slavery, what was even Obsidian says, Black people were the highest married, right? The highest married. And
Yeah,
so what
I'm
happened?
talking about right now, Keith.
No, what I'm saying is, that's what I'm saying. You guys want to talk about what is without talking about all the shit that impacts it. So if you just narrow it down to, well, there's just something wrong with black people because they don't know. You have to throw in, yeah, there were forces that ripped apart the black family. So if you want to just say black people don't want families without talking about how the black family was deliberately ripped apart, then we're not really having a conversation.
So let me ask you a question, because I know two of us. I'm not sure about Bernard, but I know for
And by the way, who am I speaking to, brother?
This SKC, man. What's going on?
SKC, my G, what's going on, brother?
So real quick, hold your thought, SKC. Counselor Murray in the building. He says, okay, there's racism. You only have one life, so you will where are you at? Where I'm at? I'm standing far back. All right, he says, so how will you defeat it? Our people are so emotional and want to be accepted. I'm like, oh man, just
everybody wants to be accepted.
And also Nick O with some Canadian dollars says the conservative preaches resolve, lacks it, telling black men not to fight empirical, social, physical, etc. barriers. Is just espousing YouTube daddies.
Why I think it's white.
YouTube daddies. Okay, anyway. All right. Thank you for the super chats, everybody. Appreciate that. Keep them coming. SKC, you was about to say something. You got the mic, you got the floor. Go ahead.
Oh no, it's just a thought. I know two-parent family here. I know there's the same for Obsidian. Obsidian, you're older than I am. Why do you think your parents were immune to being torn apart?
Yeah, my parents were married for 30 years, man. My grandparents were married for over 50.
And that's the same here for me. So I that's when you say the whole thing.
Because people don't understand statistics. This is not if I do, okay, for example, all right, this is how redlining works, okay?
SKC, were you done with your point, SKC?
Oh, my bad.
Well, what I was saying is that, yeah, we can talk about the whole thing of family and so forth, but again, that real dynamic change didn't happen until, circa about 1965 or so. So going back to slavery, I don't understand the point of that.
But we're not going back to slavery, though. I didn't go back to slavery. Usually, like when I hear the go back to slavery, it's almost like it's like I have this little joke, right? Where I go to Macy's and I buy a polo shirt, and I go back and there's something fucked up about this $90 Lacoste polo that I bought. And as I go back to the register and say, hey, miss, I bought this shirt from Macy's. There's a rip in the string. I paid $90. Why are you always complaining about slavery? It's a little joke. It's like any conversation that we have about, discrimination, whatever, all the 50 and 60 years and 70 years, all the shit that's been done, all the experiments, it's just all slavery. Like there's no nuance. It's just all you niggas are complaining about slavery. Like, I just hate that. Like, I wish we could solve all of life's problems within one podcast on the internet, on YouTube, or within a few paragraphs. All right, but these issues are complicated. We have to unravel all of these little pieces. Now, if we want to just sum it up as, well, niggas just don't want families, and then just ignore all of the social and economical and governmental interference, let's just ignore all of that and just say niggas just don't want families. That's what I don't like.
Well, if we're going to take the argument of being complicated and unraveling, all right, I can hear that. So I am one piece of that. And where I think, and Supreme King can correct me on this, where I think, let me put it this way, my impression of where he was going with his previous statement is that there are other, as you alluded to, Keith, there are a lot of moving parts at work here. It's a very complex instrument, this situation we're dealing with here. Very complex. So the piece of this complex instrument that I would add to the discussion is that Obsidian isn't part of the decline of black marriage because of Jim Crow, a legacy of slavery, the Great Society, or anything redlining or anything else.
Oh, real quick, Obsidian. Bernard, keep that message up for me if you can, because when he's done, I want to respond. Roger that.
I am. I put it up for a reason. Yep.
But because of completely personal issues that may or may not have any connection to all the big issues of Black American life over the past 100 plus years. And I think it's very difficult for a lot of Blacks. I'm not saying you, Keith, but it's difficult for a lot of Blacks to kind of zero in on that personal part of it. I think my personal opinion is it makes a lot of people feel uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. It makes a lot of Black folks feel uncomfortable, to tell you the truth.
See, to be honest, it don't make me feel uncomfortable because, again, I don't see myself in a Black community, or I just see myself as a fucking island by myself. You know, that's why I say I don't have any personal, I could drop off the planet now. Like, you know what I mean? I don't have a personal stake in it. So when people will allude to, you know, the reason that I say these things is because I don't feel any one way about it another. Just like, for instance, while I guess I'm talking, the comment that was made, right? I am very passionate. I'm passionate about the way the world works. I love the way things work. You know, you ever seen that science show? I love those factory shows, right? That shows how to make a marble and a bowling ball. I like how things work. I like to understand how people think. All right. I wanted to understand what was the actual science behind what I was able to do, right? Putting actual words on it, right? So I'm telling you about what is. So when I say Black women are done, I'm just looking at the environment, looking at how Black men are responding, how the world is moving. All right. And yes, it's not because I want it to be done. Now, me personally, I'm going to move in my own personal life the way it best makes me happy. That doesn't have an impact on how Old Man lives his life, how Bernard lives his life. But collectively, yeah, that's what I can see. It's too much competition and they aren't keeping up. So it's not that I don't care. I don't care one way or the other. I'm just telling you what it is.
But all those societal factors and everything that you talk about, I mean, if you take that strong of a stance of how all those societal factors are affecting Black people, you would have to apply that to Black women and then ultimately give them the excuse. I do. Okay, so
listen, I have already said on these podcasts why they are the way they are. Okay, I get how they got there. But at the end of the day, Black men, at the same token, are going to live there. So if I'm a Black guy, right, and she just isn't acting right, I don't care. None of that matters to me. I'm still going to, okay, I got you. I understand how you got here, but I'm still going to live my life. Mm-hmm. But I'm still can point out the fact that you're fucked up. Now we can, in another conversation, we can talk about how we got there. But we're not having these conversations all at the same time. The problem is people are trying to catch me in a trap, but they're not remembering that yesterday happened. I'm talking in the context of the conversation that we're having at the time. If we want to have a conversation about, hey, Keith, how do you think Black women got to be fucked up? Then we can have that conversation. But when we're talking about the fuckery, that's not the context of where we're having these conversations. The context of where we're having the conversations are, how are they acting now? Why aren't Black men dealing with this nonsense, right? Why are they walking away? So that's the context we're having the conversation in.
Well, it seems as if whenever we talk about Black people in general not performing, you will go right to the racism and all
okay,
that.
Well, see, the people who make this claim, Bernard, you would have a good point if I were an unsuccessful guy. What am I making excuses for? I'm successful. I got it done. I'm not a guy working at Walmart saying this is the reason why. I don't have a dog in that fight either. So the difference is
you're fighting on behalf of
I'm fighting on behalf of the truth.
Oh, okay. So just
or what? See, I will fight on some sides with white people. See, that's the difference. It depends on what day you're listening to me. One day you say I don't like Black people because I'm saying some harsh shit. The next day it'll be, oh, you're just defending fuckery of niggas because I'm defending, Aubrey. Then the next day I'm defending Black women. Then another day I'm
haven't heard you defend Black women. I haven't heard that one.
I've had some conversations, especially like on Facebook, right? Because I'll get into a little bit more nuances, and then and I'll have those conversations like this, right? Oh, Keith is a simp, because I'm actually explaining history like that. But so people will see me in that element explaining those nuances, and they'll say, "Oh, Keith, why are you simping?" Well, if you knew who the fuck I was, you wouldn't say that. But because now I'm actually explaining these nuances, now you think I'm on a certain side. So really, that says more about the person listening to me than it does about me.
All right, SKC, you was about to say something. Go ahead.
Well, I'll just go back to the original, I guess, interjection, the whole thing about Black people and family. Where's the counterpart to just one of these, I would say, cultural organizations / political organizations that are trying to put Black families together or keep them together? One for different communities would be like Heritage Foundation, which gets in excess of $100 million a year. And then the main part of their motto is that family is, the nucleus of any community. So far as if Black people are really that much for family, where is their organization that puts family at the very forefront of all issues?
It doesn't exist anymore. That the family, I've heard you guys mention the term Black people are the canary in the coal mine. You've heard that term, right?
Mm-hmm.
The family structure is done, man. Like, haven't you seen the environment you live in? The America that you live in general, right? I mean, we're the Black community is the blight, but like someone said, it is going out into white society. The family system is done. Does anything in this country that you watch say that it's anything to do with families? It's about fucking single people fucking. Every TV show is about a bunch of single people. If it is about a marriage, it ain't the family shit is done, bro. We live in a technological, advanced, a computer, 5 seconds a minute. No one is Obsidian. You don't stay at your job for 40 years anymore. You bounce around. That's your people are renting now. And this isn't the family culture anymore. You live in fucking Sodom and Gomorrah now. Welcome to the new world. You got what you fucking wanted.
Okay, so and to a certain perspective, I agree with you. However, there is a lot of research that shows that what the dynamic that is happening is that when you go below a certain pay grade, that family structure pretty much is done. But then as you raise above a certain pay grade, there's a completely different picture.
Well, the pay grade is the women. That whole saying that a society can rise no higher than their women. The women are the soil. See, the problem is we're trying to solve this problem without fixing the women. Men haven't changed. Men have been the fucking same. Men didn't break the social contract. Okay, you cannot solve this problem without being conservative, right? That's a conservative thing, right? Being families. But the women are not on board with that. You can't. What can you do? If you have your women are twerking, that's who you're dealing with. Twerking women. OnlyFans. Instagram. Yeah. You can't fucking have families. Okay, that's the girl next door is fucking dead. The thought killed that bitch a long time ago. There is no more girl next door. You can't fucking build a society and families when all the bras are fucking shaking ass on fucking IG.
Well, see, that's the problem, Keith. That's the problem. I have to disagree with you. All black women ain't doing that, man. I'm sorry.
I mean, I didn't say all. Do we have to go into the all? You are the king of BFF.
And I also say not
more than 51%. Shout out to the great Tim Alexander, right?
But I also say 40% of black women are single and childless.
But the problem is they outnumber men. It isn't a 1-to-1 ratio. That's the problem. The problem is when men look out into that same percentage, it looks like double the fuckery to us because we're outnumbered by double. So there's just not enough good women for good men.
That's not
I
true.
mean, or maybe if it's not true, but I mean, that can't be that has to be true with 80-20 Obsidian. You can't have 80-20 either. So you got 80-20, and then you got a woman trucking on IG.
Now you're talking about something else. 80.
No, it all makes sense. How many viable women do men have to choose from when either?
Now you're talking about black female mate choice with 80-20 rule. We're talking about black male mate choice. I am saying to you that a factor in the mix here, there are black women who are otherwise decent people.
What percentage are they?
That we do know is 40% of black women are single and childless. So that
so out of those ones that are single and childless,
that's
just one criteria,
right? So that percentage is somewhere in that number.
Okay, so out of the ones that are left, how many have mental issues? Because you talk on your show about the large percentage of undiagnosed mental issues in the black community, right? So after that percentage is left, out of the mental issues, how many you think is left? Out of the ones who are obese, how many do you think is left? Out of the ones that you just flat out aren't compatible with? Out of the ones that have STDs?
That's my point. That's the point that I'm getting at here. We don't have to go the thought route to explain this.
So where are we disagreeing at? Sounds like we agree, brother.
No.
Okay.
I'm saying because women that are thoughted out, etc. I'm saying there's a whole nother cohort of black women that ain't them.
But but there's something else.
Hang on. They're just not hot, man. That's what it is. They're just not attractive.
Which would be okay if you just eliminated those, and then the rest of the women would be rational and reasonable. This problem wouldn't exist because at the end of the day, the ugliest women will be left out. That is human nature. But the mass majority of relationships aren't happening is because most women don't want most men.
Hey, King Kong, you laugh, and I think you laugh because you recognize where I'm going with this.
Yeah, I mean. Keith,
am I wrong about that? Or was my assumption correct? Or was it off?
I agree with your assumption, Obsidian. I just with the whole thing with Keith, and you know Keith's my boy, man. But
hey, bro, you good? If we could disagree, we can fight, my ninja, bro. We good.
But the thing that I'm looking at these statistics here, and these are the latest that we have. That's of 2 years ago. That's where we're at. So when we look at the title of the show and it says, why aren't good black men and women getting together? And we look at the data, I don't understand why people push this whole thing of, well, no, that's just American culture. No, when you talk about men, women with children under the same household, everybody else is getting it done. Black people aren't.
Well, I mean, the white marriage rate is dropping. They're talking about it on the news, though. The white marriage rate is dropping. The white birth rate is dropping.
I understand that, but we're looking at the data right now. Like, how can you say that with looking at the data on the screen?
Oh, well, the answer is because you have to look at where something is trending, right? So, and as you're looking at the numbers, you have to follow patterns and trends, right? Just the same way that you try to predict, how your daily stocks are going to do. You have to follow how a company is trending. That way you're able to the whole purpose of being successful in investing is being able to see where the curve is before everyone else sees it. If you respond to the market at the time, you're going to be too late.
And if you sit in any investors meeting or get a prospectus sent to you, they're going to show you the numbers.
The trends say that everything is trending downward. I mean, yes, I can look at things where they are, right? So, I say you're correct where they are, but when I'm looking at the trends, it is down and dropping. The marriage rates have been dropping for several years now. The birth rates have been dropping. I mean, that's why the whole conspiracy of why, they're doing all these things with abortion to kind of get the, because what they're saying, like they're having negative replacement rates in the white community, right? And so, I mean, and then you get into the racism and all this shit. That's kind of the greater, right? Because they're losing power. They're fearful everyone's going to look like Blake Griffin, yada yada yada, right?
And
so they're losing.
And you are absolutely correct, Keith. And we've been hearing that for quite a while. I would say at least since the 90s, the downward trend of all of those things and so forth. And yet we come to 2018 and we look at children's living arrangements by race and ethnicity, and 74% of the children in white communities are living with both parents.
Yeah, they still have a masculine.
Hispanic are living with both parents. 84% of Asian are living with both parents. 36% in black.
And what's the difference between the way the black community runs and all those other ones?
Well, you said that they are all going by American culture.
No. That's not the answer. The answer is, we say it on these panels, our communities are ran by women.
Yeah.
You have to fix the fucking women. That's the common denominator. They have patriarchal.
And to those who want to, take on that task of trying to fix black women, hey, full speed ahead to you. But
now, see, that's what I'm saying. I know that's the fix. I'm saying I'm not taking on that task. I'm going to live my life and do my thing. But I'm telling you that is the fix.
Circling back to our original thought of why I interjected on you. This is why I said that when you say, are there any differences within black people and the rest of America? And I said, yeah, the rest of America, as of right now, they still have some type of want and desire for family and to protect their children's outcomes.
Well, I say relative SKC to black people.
By the data, we can show that black people really, for the most part, when you're talking about the aggregate of the whole, they don't give a damn about their children's future.
Well, that's where I don't necessarily take it to that degree to say I don't give a damn. I say that there's a problem with black people. It's not innate with black people. That I will say. Okay, I'll agree.
It's not innate. It has to be cultural.
I think that culture. I think once you show, again, when we were talking about crime, right? We already know that once you leave black people the fuck alone and you give us resources and opportunities, right? By and large, we do very well with that, right? When you stuff us in fucking hoods and shit, you're going to create a funnel. But, this is why, again, when you reach black middle class, crime drops off of a cliff. When you give black people resources and money, which is the catalyst for most of our problems, the problems with black people are we're poor as a whole, as a community. We're dealing with poor people fucking problems. We have no resources. Right, which is why most of our crime is low-level, petty, non-violent. That's what most people were locked up for. Okay, non-violent, petty, poor fucking crimes. Okay, that's the problem with black people. If that's the when people talk about reparations, they're saying if you give people resources, and not necessarily give a stoic, if you return the $15 trillion that the U.S. government stole from the Freedmen's Savings and Loan Bank, that was the black community's money that they then used to create the Fed, which then distributed low-cost home loans to white families called FHA loans, while they locked out of those black families, how they locked out those black soldiers that returned home from war. They didn't get those fucking home loans, okay? That was the time where black home ownership and black families were at their all-time highs. Y'all seen those that movie Devil in a Blue Dress, right? With fucking Denzel, where you had the black neighborhoods with the tree line. They were working class. They were homeowners, okay? But because of redlining and eminent domain and all the fucking laws, they drove black people out of their homes, sold their homes for cheap, gave those homes to white people by giving them low cost home loans called FHA loans that allowed those white people to build businesses from being able to take equity because they were broke because they were going through a depression. So yes, give stoic back.
It's up real soon, but I'll say this is probably the last thing that I'll say here. If you believe that much that racism and white supremacy is the cause of, all these problems, you really can't blame black women as much.
I'm not necessarily blaming black. I've never used the
and
word.
You shouldn't even have
blame.
as harsh of a criticism on them. If you believe racism and white supremacy is that much of the root cause of the problem and the reason why you should take your foot off black women's neck with your
I've
commentary.
had harsh criticisms of Taz and his fuckery. So again, this notion that I just have smoke and fire for one group, I don't accept that. Don't put me in that box, Bernard.
All right, cool. Now, I can have that criticism because I don't think racism and white supremacy is the problem with black people. So I can criticize the individuals. I
think money is the problem with black people, honestly. Money and opportunity.
But if you do make the argument that there's an outside force acting on these people, then it's kind of,
here's what I say, Bernard.
Hold on, bro. Hold on. It can be essentially a dick move to beat up on the people in any way if you honestly believe that there's an outside force acting on these people, preventing them from conducting themselves the way that they
Hey, Bernard, with all respect, I'll beat up on who I want. Like, I'm just calling brother, I'm just calling shit as I see it. That's why I say I'm not wondering,
Is it an argument of if the black community as a whole had access to those things that you talked about, that black women would act better? Is that what you're saying?
Do I think they would act better?
Yeah.
Go from here? No, because right now you can't put it back in the box. The problem is we've already let the monster out of the box, so you can't put it back. But yes, if we have resources, right, and black men have the ability to basically, pow right in the kisser, because that's basically what every other race of men have, right? Then yes, but can we put it back in the box now? No. You can't, you're not going to be able to unravel, even with white women, right? That's why I said the families as a whole are done. But yes, had they not reverse engineered who the fuck black people are? Yes, I would agree to that. Yes. But going from where we are now, black people are just, there is no real black community. I don't think. Black people are just kind of islands by themselves. The hood is not the black, because when people talk about the black community, they're really talking about the hood. And that ain't the black community. That's an artificial fucking, creation.
Mm-hmm.
The black community is, black people don't even know who the fuck you are.
But
you don't even know who you come from.
But wouldn't you say, Keith, that a lot of black people within various strata, economic strata, that they use the hood as an avatar?
Yes. Because hood culture is American culture. Hood culture is not black culture, because the hood wasn't created by black people. The hood was created by the white government.
Okay,
so I mean, if I create,
let me get this straight real quick. Sitting where you're at, do other people around where you stay, do they propagate hood culture?
When you say hood culture, yes and no. Yes and no.
I mean, does that happen where you're at, Bernard? Where people
when you say hood culture, do you mean are they acting when you say hood culture, this is what I mean. When you say hood culture, that's why I say yes and no. If you mean are they acting a fucking fool, tearing up the neighborhood? No.
So I'm confused as when you say that
they take elements of black people. The elements of black people are everywhere, just as like, it's an Old Navy commercial. I mean, black culture is ingrained now in American culture. They use slang. It depends on exactly, like, you're asking such a nuanced question, and then you want to say, "See, gotcha." Like, with the question you're asking is very.
I'm not trying to say, "See, gotcha," Keith. I'm trying.
When you're saying like, do they use black culture or hood culture? Yeah, there are hood culture elements are within American culture now, if you will.
Okay.
But are they tearing up the neighborhood? If that's what you're asking, are they all out drinking beer on the steps? If that's what you're talking about, hood culture, then no.
So I understand the whole idea of adopting elements of various cultures, but I don't. What I'm trying to understand is the whole idea of adopting different things from different cultures that can damage you.
Well, let me just say this. Motherfuckers are just seeing what they see on TV. That's what this culture is, television culture. Everyone, the way people act and, you know, everyone's personalities are just repeating fucking people they see on TV. I rarely see people actually, as I look at people, no one really seems genuine to me. Everyone seems that they're walking like some guy they saw on TV, or they're talking like some dude they saw on TV, or, you know, or the slang they use is the newest slang that's popular. The clothes that they're wearing is the newest shit. It's, you know, the shoes, right, that they're wearing is, you know, who such and such had on. Nobody's.
Keith, it sounds like we lost you for a second, but I'll just say, I was about to exit stage left on the.
Yeah, because
everybody is just. We live in consumerism culture. No one knows who the fuck they are, which is by design, right? Do people really innately ask themselves the hard questions? Know thyself. If we're getting to deep philosophical shit, no. Most people are just fucking superficial on the surface. And if you really talk to them at any fucking level, they don't really have a thought in their head other than what somebody told them. Most people are really not that fucking deep. And you really understand that when you start asking people why.
JJ, thank you for the super chat. He says, when black women take black men, children, 90% of relationships through the court. So why would I start a family with a black woman? Hashtag SBM. Mr. Shane Vicious says, black people were forced together by outside pressure. As those outside forces vanish, there is less reason to remain together. A breakup is natural. Ambush 850 says,
I'm about to kill Brian McLaughlin's argument. So it's going to be
hold, put it in the hoist for a second. Ambush 850, thank you for the super chat. He says, by Keith's own, we should blame, I think he's being by Keith's own argument.
Oh my God.
Smith and Wesson for all the shootings. We all have freedom.
I'm glad you can oversimplify everything I said into this one sentence of
choices. And Brian McLaughlin says,
that's disagree. What I mean by people aren't that deep. Go ahead, brother.
I disagree on the resource argument, holding black people back, because Hispanics are poor, but they're still getting married and their kids are doing better in the school system.
And here's my rebuttal to that. Hey, Brian, where do Hispanics say they come from? Don't Hispanics actually have a country they call their own? Don't they actually have a culture that they call their own? Because they have a country they call their own, right? Exactly.
So
what do Chinese people? What do Chinese people?
So you're saying that their cultural identity comes from their country, right?
Yes, they have a. Okay. Where does black people's culture come from? Where are you from?
Okay,
where's from?
So this is my rebuttal to that.
America is your country, Stoic. Exactly.
Right. So this is my rebuttal to that, Silent. Because you have so many cultures that are flooding into America, and black people have been here for so long, then instead of adopting the worst of the worst, why not you have your pick and choose of all of these attributes from societies from all over the world?
That's fair. I would agree with that.
You can pick and choose a la carte and create the best culture that could be on the planet.
I would agree to that. SKC. The problem is you people are wanting this shit to happen overnight. Nigga, like you're not even a full generation from having all your fucking rights, okay? Like, we understand what we're saying, but it's not going to happen in 1-2 generations. The issues we're trying to fix are going to take 5 and 6 generations to fix. That's the problem. I don't disagree with that. What I'm saying now in the nuance of things, that based on the shit that you've been through and you being only 1 generation from being hung from trees in your own country, you're actually doing pretty fucking good. You're headed in the right direction, despite you not having any fucking resources. You are the only and only fucking people that have to fucking pull yourselves up by your bootstraps because you have no country. White people got socialism. It was called the New Deal. Niggas, you ain't had shit, and you're still here competing, and you're rebuilding with nothing. So my argument is that in context of things, right? I think black people as a whole are doing pretty well despite all the fucking shit, and no one's giving us shit. And we've created a lot of the American cultures and the hip hop cultures that and all this shit that America actually, black people have actually built a lot of shit in this country. So that in my context, you're doing pretty fucking well.
To a certain degree, I would agree with you, but this is where I disagree. White people, Hispanic people, Asian people, whatever people you want to go through, they're not going in the black community and forcing black men and black women to hate each other.
We get that. We get that. That's a different context. See,
well,
what the problem
the whole show is about is why good black men.
But you can't explain that with that, though.
The whole thing is that they do it to themselves.
I agree, but that's not but that doesn't lead. Okay. I mean, I don't know. That was a great hop, but
that's not money. No, they do that to themselves.
Yes, we do it to themselves. Yes, we are making individual decisions. Yes, at the very base. Yes, that's correct. I don't disagree with you. If you're breaking it down to yes, everyone's just making, when you put them into a maze, are just making individual decisions. I mean, we act as if we can't control, like governments don't control how people move as a group. Okay, these people, if we're talking about the man pulling the strings, if you will, they're not pulling the strings of individual people. That's not how this fucking works. What you do is the man, if you will, if I'm the man, I'm looking at how do I move large groups of people as a whole. These groups right here. Well, let me explain.
I like the people Rogers' comment, his super chat, where he says, "Don't even have our own language."
Exactly,
and that's a valid point. But here's the problem with that. Okay. You as slaves, you coming out of, like it says, slavery, your language, certain bits of your culture taken away from you, and so forth. Okay, so the only option that you have at that point is to adopt the best things that are around you,
which they did, and then which was called Reconstruction, which they did.
Which SKC finish,
and use it for your own. So to reject the tools that others are using that work,
but he didn't reject. See, that's where you're wrong, because we didn't
have your own culture. That's ridiculous. Why are you?
But you're setting up the premise wrong. You said we didn't do that.
I want to know what he was about to say. Like you keep cutting off, Keith. You keep cutting them off.
Well, all I'm saying is to try to re-engineer or create some type of new, authentic black culture when you never had one, and trying to keep up with other cultures at the same time. That's ridiculous.
Okay. Is that a period?
That doesn't make any sense to do that.
Okay, that's fair, but your question started with 2 + 2 = 6. What you're saying we didn't do was done. It was called Reconstruction. Okay, with nothing. Those slaves built many communities, many. You remember those old Rosewood stories? And, there were many towns like Black Wall Street, many. And all of that, again, I keep telling you about 15.
How did they build those?
Let them finish up.
They built, you remember those old stories about the sharecroppers, right? Remember, like the 48 Kinder Mule, right? Basically what happened was, because we got to get the whole context. Basically what happens is ADOS are basically native to America. And they were basically taken as prisoners of war when these fucking people came over to America, right? The story that essentially about the Indians were really native. They were copper-colored native tribes, right? You heard the story of the slaughter and all that. So actually those natives that they told you they slaughtered were actually your ancestors who they actually took as prisoners of war, and they took their land in what was called the first Homestead Act. Okay,
and I'll agree with all of that. I'm just saying, so far as
well, hold on. I haven't gotten to my whole.
Go ahead, Keith.
I haven't gotten to the whole because I got to give you the whole context. All right, because if we get into the 2 + 2 = 6, I got to give you the whole context. Okay, so in the first Homestead Act, the settlers that came over here took that land, stole the land from the native people, the native copper covered tribes, and divided them. And what was created from them, what were called the colonies. Okay, then black people invented this thing called the cotton gin, and then they tilled the land for free called cotton. Now that cotton allowed America to become the world superpower, because before then it was the Chinese. Because the Chinese were the superpower because they were bartering in silk, right? The silk fucking trade was really fucking big, right? Then America took over with the fucking cotton trade, and we were allowed to do that with the cotton gin. So fast forward that Abraham Lincoln essentially wrote into law the Freedmen's Savings Bank, okay? Now the Freedmen's Savings Bank, okay, was to house all in that reparations, that the 40 acres and a mule that you were to get was basically America's agreement to return the land that they stole from you, okay? That land that they divided up to build the colonies. So after they release you, you were given this little parcel of land to till, which then you get into the fucking sharecroppers, is where and actually the sharecropping deal is where America reneged their 40 acres and a mule promise, to where they were supposed to give those black people the land. Instead, they sold it back to them for a markup. So what happens is your fucking ancestors ended up tilling their own fucking land as sharecroppers, and they were innately made poor because, again, their land was stolen from them. Then that money that was housed by Abraham Lincoln, he created into law what was called the Freedmen's Savings and Loan Bank. It housed $15 trillion in black wealth that slaves after slavery had built during Reconstruction. Okay, that money, along with Black Wall Street, were burned down. The Freedmen's Savings Bank was fucking abolished. That money was fucking stolen and used to create the Fed. Okay, the Fed was created with what money? The $15 trillion they stole from black people, your fucking money. They then took that fucking money, distributed among white fucking families in the New Deal. Okay, you know about your ancestors that came back from the Vietnam War, those soldiers that fought for their GI Bills. Okay, they came back. They created what was called FHA loans. This is where FHA loans, okay, it was a government-backed low-cost loans that they gave to white families and locked black families out of. This is where white people were able to create wealth, because this was the time that white people were going through a depression. They were fucking broke, okay? They had food lines. The U.S. government created the white middle class with FHA loans. So this whole bootstraps bullshit, fuck that. All right, those home loans that black people were locked out of were allowed white people to build the wealth that they've been passing down for the last 2 or 3 generations. So those white boys that go to school with you and your kids, when they have a friend of a friend that knows somebody that's got some money that can get some help to go to college, this is why, because they've been passing down the wealth that the U.S. government gave them. Meanwhile, your black boys got to learn how to play fucking football. All right. So again, this whole blacks didn't do shit is bullshit.
No, I wasn't saying that they didn't do anything, and I enjoy the history, man.
I love history too.
And that was just off the top of the dome. God damn it!
Where I'm at, reeling off, and this happens a lot in conversations when we start talking about black people today, not doing or doing what they need to do today. What always ends up happening is somebody starts reeling off a lot of really nice, neat, interesting historical fun facts, and I always end up coming back to today, and I don't see how reeling off historical fun facts does anything. Because
one thing, if you say, why aren't black people, well, that's the answer. If you say you don't think it's because of money, I just told you why it's because of money.
Okay,
I mean, there's
2 things that I think.
I'm gonna let you get in, SKC.
Oh, okay.
Everybody who's performing today and performing well, it's not just strictly, or it's not. I don't even think it's not even mostly strictly because their parents had money. That's not really how it works in America in a free capitalist market where it's dog eat dog and you got to get out there. I mean, so yes, there's a class of white people who got a lot. You know, we know how much wealth the top 1%ers got. We know how much wealth the top 5%ers
It's not
got.
even the top 1%ers or top 5%ers. Your average, regular, blue collar white family, their average wealth. Okay, I'm not talking about individuals.
Because it's 2 people in the family and they bought a house and they own the house and you pay a house off and you pass it down to your kids. That's normal.
You own less than 0.5% of wealth in this country.
Yeah,
that you helped build. Do you think that's by accident?
Do I think it's by accident? No.
Do you think it's by accident that the black collective owns less than 0.5% of the wealth that they helped build? Yeah, every Nike commercial is some black song. Everything that you look around, black people have a hand in the very internet.
It is nothing stopping black people today from buying property, from having
It's nothing stopping them today. I agree, but you're talking about the wealth that's already been passed around for the last 3 to 4 generations.
We're not talking about Jim Crow wealth.
We know that. We know. That's why I said you need reparations. That's why I said you need reparations. That's why you need reparations, because you can't do anything about the wealth that was stolen.
All right, we're going to go to a reparations debate. I'm not trying to do that right now.
Well, you ask why, because you're asking me why. Okay, why? And then as I explain these things.
Overall, we can't do nothing about wealth that was established.
Okay, conservative, I'm about to time you out, brother. You're listening to a podcast. I don't care if you agree or disagree. All right, but stop, bro. Conservative.
You're talking to somebody in the chat. Okay. Calm down. We can't do nothing about that right now, but right here today, it is nothing stopping black people from buying property. Most people who got wealth that they could pass down, really what it is a house that 2 people got together, they got married, they bought a house, they paid it off, they passed it to their kids, and that's how why the kids got a net worth of $200,000 because it's a $200,000 house.
My conservative out. He needs to sit in the corner for a second.
I don't even know what's going on in the chat. I'm not even looking at the chat, but whatever. But
I agree with what you're saying, Bernard, and that was my point. Is what is stopping these people from right now, with all of the history that they can acquire from black people that know all these things about history? Why can't they just say, okay, well, right now, what we're going to do to counteract that stuff, since there's nothing that we can do about it, is let bygones be bygones between each other, get together and make this family work.
Well, okay, so I agree with that. We should do that. It's going to take time. What I'm saying is we are doing.
That's what I'm saying. It shouldn't take time. If we
it's not going to happen overnight. But black people are not. I don't know you other than you on the internet. Black people are just not some blob of people who all just know each other. You don't just start a train and it just goes to 90 miles an hour. All right. If you're in a sports car, you can just hit the fucking gas and just go 90 miles an hour. If you're in a goddamn semi truck, you got to shift through 9,000 fucking gears. You're not just going to. I mean, it's easy to have these conversations on the internet but the way the world moves, it isn't just going to happen overnight. Oh, okay, everyone's going to come to this collective agreement overnight. No one fucking works like that. Okay. I agree that needs to work, but it's not going to happen tomorrow.
Well, if you're talking about generational wealth, by definition, it won't happen overnight. Everybody gets that, but the steps in the proper steps to even walk in the direction of that. Hold on, the proper steps to even walk in the direction of that aren't even taking place right now. I mean,
well, what do you mean? Like brothers are like CEOs of what is it exactly like? Most black people aren't who's fighting on World Star and Pop. Like collectively, the majority of black people are going to work. Most black people are going to work and being productive. Like
I'm with you. A lot of black people are middle class. A lot of black men are doing good. That's a fact. It's a lot of black people who are doing good. But the problem is, and this is the core of the disagreement.
Yeah,
those that are not doing well, because we are statistically lower. You talked about only owning 1% of the wealth in this country. average black man make less than the average white man. We talked about the marital rate. We're talking about the amount of children born out of wedlock. We're talking about the lack of families. We're talking about all of those things. Those are problems that steps can be taken to move in the direction of fixing all of that today, and talking about what happened 90 years ago with some banks and loans and stuff and this and that.
Well, no, it doesn't. But in the context of he asked the question that he asked, and then I give a very nuanced response, and then we say, well, we're not. He asked the question, so I had to give the nuanced response to it.
But it amounts to just reeling off historical fun facts just to say it ain't our fault, and that's fine. Okay, it ain't our fault. But now,
that's not what I'm. That's okay. That's
just like for example, if somebody was molested as a child, it's not that child's fault that they were molested, but it's their responsibility.
I get that, but I'm not arguing we shouldn't move forward, though. I'm Mr. Move Forward. Why the fuck is everybody acting like I'm like the one making excuses? Like that's the nuance. Like I'm the guy. I'm Mr. Move Forward. I'm Mr. Move Forward. If Move Forward was in a dictionary, I would be him. So why is everyone acting like I'm using that as a cover? That's not.
So here's the question.
I'm so sorry. I got one more point to make. This is the reason why you don't seem like a Move Forward person. Because
you're not listening. Because you're worried about what you think I mean.
I can tell you why.
Okay.
Whenever somebody is talking about history, Black history, but they're not talking about it purely from an academic standpoint. Like when you was breaking down that history, I was loving that. I wanted to go read about it. I even wrote some stuff down. I'm going to look up a lot of that. I'm going to try to read something on it.
Because context matters.
If I can find a documentary on it. I want to know about that purely from an academic standpoint. But right here today,
yes, sir. So what question is it that you want to ask? I answered his question. He let me down. He was the one. Well, how come and why come and how come and why come? And I'm tossing him up. Boom, boom, boom. Okay, here's why. Here's why. Here's why. Well, why the fuck are you talking about why?
His how come and why come was a question about 2020 that could have been answered in 2020. You took
us. Okay, that's fair enough. Fair enough. We just ain't shit. Got you.
No, we can do better.
I mean, yes, we can do better. Got you. I think we can do better. I agree. Okay.
But I think people lean on those historical fun facts they're trying to give.
Well, no, when people say we have a fucked up culture, and I have to point out to you that we don't have the culture and why, then yes, that matters.
I think we do have a jacked up culture. And I think it's interesting that even if you take inside of all of that historical content, you have Black people that were coming off plantations that once they got out of that, the first thing that they did was form families so that they could move forward. And now you have over 100 years later, and you have very, very educated Black people that have microcomputers in their hands that can look up this information, and they can't get to an understanding that in order to move forward and to compete on the world stage that they need families.
Yes, we need families. I agree.
All right. We'd like to
forget the fact that you have the government coming in, making sure there weren't no men in the fucking homes. Like we just forget, bing, bang, bam, boom, niggas just don't care about. That's what I don't like. That when he makes a statement like that, it's just niggas don't care about family. So that's why I have to bring it all.
It's embedded into the culture now, Keith. It is what it is.
Well, agreed. Well, it's embedded. That is American culture.
Black American subculture is anti-family.
I disagree with that.
It is what
that's what I disagree with that. And I told you why. We can agree to disagree. I said innately. When you say that, then you say that there's something innately with Black people. I disagree.
Okay, so name me one thing out of Black.
Did they have counselors coming into white people's home, making sure no men were in the home?
One thing out of Black American culture that pushes Black men and Black women to stay together and to raise families.
Okay, they don't push no one to stay together. They don't push Black. None of it push. Here's the answer: nothing. But my further answer is that is the American culture. They don't push anyone to stay together. So when you ask the question within a vacuum, American culture is not pushing families. Yes, Black subculture If you get into subculture, then I got to start talking about counselors coming in, white people making sure there weren't any fathers in the home. Okay, because white people didn't have that happening in their communities. Chinese people didn't have that happening. Mexican people didn't have that happening. Okay, so there were greater forces in play that destroyed the black family, other than just niggas just don't want families. So when you make that statement, now you have to bring back in all the nuance.
So you're saying that man in the house rule only applied to 10% of the population?
Say again. I didn't say it. What man? What
the man
what?
Out of the house, or
I didn't say any of that. I didn't say anything about man in the house only applying to 10%.
Okay, all right. I'll rephrase it different. You're saying that they used to come and make sure that it wasn't a man living in the house if the woman was receiving welfare.
They came through the black communities because they essentially moved black families to housing projects in the time that they moved white families to the suburbs, because black people were primarily living in the suburbs. So then when they gave the white people the home loans, that they basically moved white people to the suburbs, and then they created housing projects. Then after that, they came in and made sure, because at the time too, you're going through a time where there was a change from manufacturing too, because a lot of black men had a lot of manufacturing jobs. So you were also, a lot of black men had lost a lot of the manufacturing jobs. You had an economical change, yada, 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 right? And then they brought in welfare, and then the original welfare wasn't man not in the house rule. That actually didn't start until the late 70s, early 80s, right? And then it became a requirement that in order to get benefits, there could be no man in the house.
And interestingly, Keith, a lot of the things and the majority of the things that you stated was in the Moynihan Report. And who were the individuals that fought against it, said that it was a bunch of bull, racist, just black people?
Okay, so it's just black people created all these. I mean, I get you.
I'm not saying.
It's almost like I don't say that black people are blameless, but it just seems like we'll call out black people, but we won't call out white people.
All of this out to you in an intellectual way. Black people rejected it and said that it was racist. So history, we can say that on the internet now. We can say that on the internet now.
To say that again.
Brought up everything that Keith just brought up so far as all of the different laws and regulations and the different things that happen with the black family. All of this was put in the black family's lap via the Moynihan Report in the city.
This shit was American policy. Come on, man. Like, black people just said, I swear in 10 years, I'm going to read history books. Black people would have created ships to sail to Africa to enslave other black people. And then there was all black slave owners.
In your lap and you rejected it.
Who is you? Like,
I'm talking about the whole race.
Okay, so it's black people. That's who did it all. It's black people.
Rejected it.
Okay, so it's black people just did it all.
What do you mean by they rejected it? Explain that.
Patrick Moynihan was ostracized from the academia so much that his
what did they reject
after that? He didn't even write any stuff about that. And anybody that even tried to touch on that subject, black or white, that didn't even happen for like
but what did he reject specifically? We're asking what did he reject?
All of that because they said the exact same things that Keith is saying right now.
What specifically did Moynihan say that black people reject?
Why should we have to go back through all of this? Read the Moynihan Report.
Bernard just asked, you made the assertion.
Everything that you just said.
What? Well, more or less, the Moynihan Report made predictions about what was going to happen to black people, put it in their left, and black people just looked at it and basically said, "Oh well, whatever."
So they put all black people inside of a coliseum and then told them all, "Hey, this is what's going to happen." And then the black collective said, "No, fuck that. We're not going to do that."
That's sort of what I was getting at when I said, "What do you mean by they rejected?" I wasn't aware that they
presented the black people with
academia and a large majority of.
I don't remember these black people back in the day being involved in all this academia.
Like the civil rights individuals, women that was in like black feminism, all that stuff. They rejected it wholly as a racist document, and there's even footage that you can find.
I think sometimes we try to
black people talking about this on TV and calling it a racist document.
Okay.
But it just
the grand collective of black people just okay.
I think They were rejecting.
It's like they gave us black people as a collective. They gave us all a vote, and then the black people said, "No, we just okay."
You know, I like to return to something before we kind of tumble down this rabbit hole. I like to get back to a very simple premise, and that is that we were talking earlier about why a situation exists, and I argued for reasons that were personal. And I've noticed consistently, and I'm not putting anybody, I'm not laying this at anybody's feet per se. I'm just making an observation. I notice it's very difficult for black folk to just simply say, look, man, you know, I just didn't do what I want to do, so and thus and so, or I fucked up, or it's very hard for us to just, you know, just leave it at a personal thing, and that's that.
Yep.
Right.
It's extremely difficult for just to just say that, and that's all there is. That's it. Why is that?
All right, I'll just concede. Black people as individuals are personally jacked up, and we're responsible for our issues. Where do we go from here? Gotcha.
Well, that's not where I was getting at.
I mean, that's the only way to concede, because you know we'll be. So I'll concede the conservative point. Fine, we're our own worst enemy.
I'm sorry, Keith. I'm sorry. This had nothing to do with you, man. There's a dude in the chat that said that the Moynihan Report, it just became public knowledge. We're just being able to get the report.
Like the average person doesn't know about the Moynihan Report. I mean, heck, 30% of people still thinks the sun revolves around the earth, man. I mean, like it's easy to have these conversations on the internet, but the average person walking around in the universe doesn't know this stuff, man.
See, my thinking is this. Okay, so my thinking is
y'all overestimate the intelligence of the average person, man.
Yeah, see, my thinking is this, that in these kinds of conversations, it's very difficult for a lot of black folks, I've observed, to just say, look, man, shit just didn't work out. And that's that. Yeah, no, I mean, it's almost as if, like, I mean, to me, you know, sometimes a cigar is just a cigar, man. I think the reason why the good black men and the good black women aren't getting together is because they're not sexually attracted to each other. The end.
Yeah.
Well, I disagree. Good black are attracted to the women. The women aren't attracted to the good black men.
You would have to explain Instagram.
What? So because men ogle beautiful women on Instagram, therefore that means what?
That means they're ogling beautiful women on Instagram.
Exactly. It doesn't mean anything. That doesn't have anything to do with anything.
I don't necessarily means they will reject an average guy will reject the average woman that's on
because they look at beautiful women on the internet. That I don't agree with that.
That's one area in the opening part of
that's like saying because men look at beautiful actresses in movies and in Playboy magazine. I mean, come on.
Yeah, that was one area early on in the show, right? Some disagreement.
The average guy is again, but the tens argument.
Shit. But yeah, but a lot of things do come down to personal choices, and I'm not going to deny or negate the personal choice element of it. You know, we can go back to Jim Crow, we can go back to civil rights, Moynihan, go back to slavery, we can go back to Africa. I don't care. Right now, we are here right now in 2020, and people can make steps in the right direction to improve the overall situation of black people. I agree with what Brian McLaughlin is saying there. He says, so if everything is tied to racism, there should be no more talking points on black women and their BS. Why? Because they are victims of racism.
Yeah. See, I think that's an incredibly, I know I know what he's doing, so I'm not talking to him per se, but I think that sentiment is incredibly, short-sighted.
Explain why.
And univariate. Life is, as Keith rightly pointed out with the black experience, I think he's right to point out that it's a very complex instrument. Human beings are complex instruments. I mean, you can't reduce life to just a univariate, you know, or look at just a univariate thing.
I get that, but if personal choice, and I know you agree with this, Obsidian, if personal choice and will of an individual can trump over racism happened.
I never said it did.
All right, so that's why I feel like the racism argument it should be damn near dead. It's like if some George Floyd shit happened, then okay, yeah, that has to get tackled and dealt with. But if we look at the overall state of where black people at and areas where we could do better, I don't want to hear about what happened 80 years ago.
Yeah, but I understand the reason why it has such appeal. I mean, we talked earlier about, and I don't know if Kevin is listening, but he can, because I'm bringing him up. He might want to jump on to bring some context to it. But we all heard, everybody's heard this. He's talking to a lady the other night. She says she's an 8. We all looking at her. It would be kind to say she was a 4. I mean, it's hard to see how racism has anything to do with that. It's hard to make that argument.
I think my argument is racism actually made black men more or less selective.
You said more and less?
No, I said more incorrectly. Less selective.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's hard to see how racism played a role in that call that Kevin took the other night with that woman from Philadelphia.
It doesn't. Thank racism for why black men would be stepfathers. Racism helped black women, not hurt them.
But again, it's hard to see how racism played a role in that call that he had with that woman who said she was an 8, and at best, being generous, she would be a 4. I think that's something that's outside of the realm of racism. And my argument is,
I would agree.
Having talked to a lot of black academics who kind of work in the racism business, if you will, and many of them have agreed with me off the record that, yeah, these are problems that are outside of the racism bailiwick. But they can't say that openly because they'll run afoul of the racism cathedral commissars who must reduce everything, every problem of the human condition in contemporary black America to racism.
Yep. Because she's gonna say they were gonna say that the only reason y'all rate her as a 4 is because of y'all racist view due to the European standard of beauty.
Yeah,
well, she's a crazy person.
It's funny. It's funny, Supreme King. I don't know if you heard this, but before you got on the air, I was talking with a sister on Kevin's group on Facebook, and she railed against his argument of a classic beauty on the basis that it was somehow Eurocentric in nature.
It is.
And I said, for the sisters that rail against that argument, I don't recall hearing many black men, when black women are ogling Kevin in his tailored suits, I don't hear many black men say, you know what? That's unfair to the brothers because that suit was made, that was invented by the white man. I mean, that would have to be the analog.
That's fair.
If you're thinking rationally, that would have to be the analog.
So what is our issue? Is it just are we just fucked up, or what? I mean, I'm just trying to figure out what is our issue? Like, we're just bad people, or
the issue is
God hates us, or what's up?
The issue is we're coming to grips with what it means to be free. And being free means there are going to be winners and losers. That's life.
Shall be still.
Well, it sounds like Thanos. snap half of these motherfuckers away. I mean,
and Keith, my argument is it's not the whole thing of God hates us or nothing like that. I'm just saying.
Hey, you know what? I think it's clear that I just need to go and do what I do and not worry about anybody else. I'm all right with that.
Well, I'm just saying as a whole, Keith. One thing that I think that Black people have a hard time just admitting, dude, is this. Okay, you look at the past, and I understand it was jacked up. I understand that a lot of crazy stuff happened or whatnot. But
just forget about it. It doesn't matter. Just start from scratch. You got it.
Lost. It was an L.
Yes.
Now you got to build from that.
Gotcha.
Accept the loss and move on.
We got you. Just accept all the stuff that comes along with it.
You lost.
Let's stop. If we agree to that, then you're right. That's also why we need to stop complaining about. Like if you get the rain, you have to accept the mud. Then if you understand and we move on, then just accept you're not going to be able to fix half of us because it's impossible. Period. Like if you're not going to address that, then just move on. It's 10% of us is going to make it. Accept that and let's move on. I'm okay with that.
Wait a minute.
But to pretend like you're going to be able to fix 90% without fixing all that other stuff.
It depends on what you define as making it when you say only 10%.
Whatever you define as making it. What you guys, we're in that top 10%. I'm all right with that. Let's all of us move forward, but we're not going to fix 90% if we don't fix that other stuff.
Well, it's impossible.
As long as we're okay with that, that's all I'm saying. But don't worry about the other 90% of fuckery if you're not going to fix the other stuff because it's going to exist as a byproduct.
Let it burn.
They're going to be. It's not possible for that 90% to perform as well as the 10%. There will always be a top.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
So, it can be improvement. So when you say not making it, I mean there's white people.
Well, improvements. If we got to use bootstraps, then it's going to take 400 years to get the percentage of people you want.
There are white people who are perfectly happy making 50K and they're doing okay. So I mean, it's okay to be average. It's okay to just
but they have uncles and familial wealth. That's the difference. It's not just them.
No, they don't just have a rich uncle that they can go borrow $1 million.
I didn't say rich. We're talking about numbers.
Okay, I exaggerated. They don't. They probably have a relative.
White people have access to wealth that blacks don't have. They're the 6 degrees of separation from wealth.
Yeah, you're talking as if they have some kind of under the table socialism. They have some under the table socialism. No, that's not how it works. Poor white people got to work hard to just be barely not poor. That's typically how it works in America. So I can't. It's like you're looking at the racism in the past, and you're looking at how much better white people. The top of white people are doing now, and you saying it's because of that. Therefore, white people as a whole are doing better, and it's almost like
if you're oversimplifying it, sure.
I mean, that's what it sounds like.
I mean, sure. In the context of the conversation we were having, I was responding to that, but sure.
That's cool, but yeah, all I'm saying.
I'm just saying everyone knows I'm a smart guy, but as soon as I start talking about racism, all of a sudden I just don't know nothing, and I'm just
you know a lot. You know a whole hell of a lot. And I mean, you educated me on some things today, but I still don't think it has nothing to do with what black people need to do right here today in 2020, as SKC was saying.
I don't disagree.
We took an L back then. We took an L. We're here right now. We don't got a time machine, and talking about all the shit that happened then ain't going to make a difference with now. And then when you look at the data with generational wealth, most of that shit don't even make it into the next hands of the next generations. A lot of wealth is built or rebuilt or reestablished by individuals coming up doing what they got to do. Do white people have some type of advantage? Okay, even if I can see that point, they got an advantage by them being the majority or some possible connections or this or that, but it's nothing stopping black people from doing better, but I don't expect it to happen overnight. Building more vertical businesses. Shout out to Kevin Samuels. There's nobody stopping that from happening. There's some things that need to be done on a larger scale from a collective standpoint. And when we start having these conversations about what black people need to do.
But I don't disagree with any of that.
As far as business and as far as families and as far as raising kids in the right environment, raising them the right way. all of that stuff. I feel like when we end up back in 1920, when we having that conversation in 2020, I feel like we just pissing in the wind. That's where
Yes, sir. I won't ever bring it up again. I got you.
I'm not saying you don't got to bring it up. I'm just saying that it's just not. I
mean, I get it. I mean, you're on your soapbox now. I won't bring it up. I don't. Every time I bring up, that's the part where everyone gets. Anytime I bring, everyone's all nodding their heads as I start talking about white people. I won't bring it up.
That's the same.
I'll just shut up.
You ain't got to shut up, Keith. You ain't got to shut up, Keith. I do like. Hey, you dropped a lot of knowledge. I wrote some things down, and I will be researching some of the things you brought up.
Charles Merchant comment where he says, and I think it was going back to what I was talking about with the subculture.
I'm just gonna stop blaming all my problems on racism.
Do we celebrate or ostracize blacks that succeed despite racism, or do we call him Tom? I mean, it's like you can't win for losing, man. It's like you can't win for losing, man.
Yeah, so to me, I think it's very difficult because we're still in a very real. I mean, Keith is right to point this out. It's only been maybe 55 years, maybe, since black people were, legally set free, truly, with the passage of the, voting rights and civil rights and acts, and then the things that came after that, Fair Housing Act and all the rest of it. So you're looking at roughly a half a century, thereabout. That's a relatively short period of time, especially seen against the backdrop of a century of Jim Crow, several centuries of chattel slavery, a horrible civil war, Reconstruction. You have to be reasonable on that. You say, yeah, I can see that point. I can concede that. It's going to take at least a few more generations for all of this to kind of shake itself out. And in a very real sense, we're still in the midst of a.
Don't be agreeing with me and shit.
Yeah, in the very real sense, we're in the midst of a transitional period. You really sit down and think about it from a long view. In a very real sense, we're still in the midst of a transitional period. I think it's going to take some time for black folks to get acclimated to first world problems, because that's really what this all comes down to. These are first world problems, and it's hard for us to see it that way because we're so wedded to, real, existential problem, life and death, and and degradation of dignity and right. Those are real things. And making the transition, he's laughing. Making the transition to a first world problem is a real shock. Shelby Steele was right to point out that part about the shock of freedom. That's a very real thing, and it's a psychological thing. I don't think this is something that historians and your traditional black leadership class, which is a kind of hodgepodge of various academics, public policy people, media people, and theologians. I don't think this is within their wheelhouse to meaningfully address. A lot of this comes down to, and again, shout out to St. Kevin on this. A lot of this comes down to the area of therapy, to the area of counseling and psychology. I don't think the tools of the past can be useful in this moment. And I think that for a lot of black people, it's still difficult, black men and black women alike, it's still difficult to, see life in a kind of first world problem kind of way. If you sit down and listen to me for length of time, it's really what I'm talking about. I don't talk about like racism problems. I'm talking about first world problems.
You mean to tell me we can't still use the abacus?
Supreme King Coon. By the way, did you read my newsletter this morning?
Yes.
I would like to get your well, because that's it's on a related topic to what we're talking about right now. But
Yeah, I was just about to say that if you, I didn't
let me
want to.
back up and go to the actual newsletter that was the basis of why we're on the air right now. I would love to get your take on
I
that.
dropped off just a second, but Obsidian, that was basically that speech that you gave, what I was basically trying to say. It's going to take time.
So far as what, Keith?
No, basically everything Obsidian said was basically what I was attempting to say.
That there's nuanced topics in it, and
yes, it's going to take time, and I was saying, hey, that's reason. That's all I was trying to say.
yeah, and I agree with you. I agree with you there,
but I say it.
But it poses another question that comes up so far as with everything that was stated, can we really say that the Black community is moving forward, or is it changing into something totally different?
Well, both. The answer is both. When you guys say moving forward, what you really mean is moving backwards, right? Because you're trying to go back to the time of Molly and Cleaver and them. Them times in American culture are over. No one's going back to that. Are we moving forward to join the rest of where America is heading? Yes, but we ain't going back to the 60s, player. Even make America great again. Them days of GM and where, you could work for 40 hours and, and buy a house on this one salary and mom can stay at home and you can still take your kids on two. Them days is gone, man. Well, all these women want to be stay-at-home wives. Do you not understand the way this new economy works? Like, you're asking for something that's impossible. The average person ain't gonna make the amount of money that it's gonna take for a lifestyle for you to stay at home wife. You're fucking out of your mind.
Yeah,
that's not in the cards. You live in a new world.
I'm not even talking about that, Keith. I'm just talking.
No, I was just making an overall just. Yes, and no.
I get what you're saying so far as people wanting to go back and have like this, in their mind, Beaver Cleaver type of lifestyle. But what I'm talking about is moving forward. And how can you move forward if your men and your women can't even get along with each other?
But brother, again, white folks have MGTOW.
Long-term relationships.
Brother, what I'm saying is, when you preface the question, right, and then you make it and say Black people, that's where I'm fighting back, because all of us are having that same problem now. White men have MGTOW, okay? That issue now specifically is an American issue. Families are done. Everyone, maybe Asians or Latino, maybe they or Middle Easterns. But the white, Black majority, the American culture, families are done. So yes, Blacks are moving forward into this new world to where it's pretty much people are screwing each other. Yes, but this whole family stuff is done for everybody.
I disagree.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I disagree. I think that the best data that we have shows that it's in serious trouble for Black people.
Yes, it hits us extra hard. Correct.
But for everybody else, it's a mixed bag, and I think that
it's a trend downward, Obsidian.
But I think once again, here again. I mean, we can't just stand on its own and say, we got some unique problems in Black America we need to deal with. We have to kind of connect it to, something else. I think it's very scary. I've noticed this about a lot of Black folks. It's very scary. You want to know the reason why? Let me back up.
Thank you for contacting us here at Capital One. My name is Keith. I'm on the recorded line. I'm going to help you today.
What the hell? All right.
I'll share something real quick because
you might have the last word because I was supposed to have been done with this. And I got to wrap it up.
Okay.
You got the last word.
I'll end with this, Bernard. We talk about things like stocks and financial data and so forth, and we look at things that's called trends and so forth. However, I don't know if you could share my screen, but
it's a report that is coming from, January of this year, and from the American Community Survey. And again, it talks about this trend, this downward trend, but it talks about from about right here from 2011 up till 2019. And I'll read. The period from 2011 to 2019 is the longest period of stability or improvement in child's living situation since the 1950s. So I think it's not an accurate point to say right now. I'm not saying that it will change in the future, but I'm saying as of right now, from the data that we have that goes up to 2019, we have seen a decade of stability when it comes to two parents keeping their children under one household in America. I'll end on that.
Yeah, it's See, I think that like I said, we're still kind of coming to grips with what it means to be free. What does that mean? Black people have never truly been free to determine their own destiny until very recently in American history. So what does that mean? What does that look like? I mean, you look at black. Let's take a step back and do it this way. We know now,
I got you. Any name, make your point, brother. I got you.
We know now in Black America that Black men and Black women are beginning to diverge in a significant way that has, read 4 years ago, and will, read this coming November, determine the fate of the entire nation at the political level. Read presidential politics. Black women support the Democrat Party to the tune of nearly 100%. Black men, according to a Vox article earlier this spring, have doubled in their support, going from roughly 13% 4 years ago to about 25% as of this spring. There are real implications in why that is and growing. And politics is only an extension of your worldview, of your values, of how you order life, of what you think a good life means. If that's true, then it can also be said that in large, broad strokes defined at the voting booth, that Black men and Black women are having fundamentally different ideas about what a good life even means, what that looks like, how that functions. Do you agree or disagree, Supreme King Kun?
No, I agree with that. Like you said, there's a huge divergence, and you put it in your article as well, the newsletter this morning, that again, even with all of these different mixtures and whatnot, other segments of groups, even when it comes to cohabitating, are doing better than Black people. Think about that. You don't even have to have a contract of, oh, we're getting together and we're putting this on paper before the government. No, just the whole idea of we just got to get off the street and we formed a bond and we're gonna go ahead and do our own thing. That number is significantly lower than other races. So it's like, come on, you can't sit up here and say that there's nothing wrong with Black men and Black women getting together. There's a significant. It's a unique problem.
It is, yeah.
And I think to give a nod to Keith, to the Keith contingent, I'll put it that way. To give a nod to that.
I love that. That need to be a show. The Keith contingent.
In responding to you, Supreme King Kun, I think the difference is we're still grappling with what it means to be free. All these other racial groups, even ones that face their own forms of discrimination, read the Jews, read Asians, read the Irish, even those groups who face their own forms of discrimination, they still nevertheless experienced some degree of American freedom that for Black people is a very new thing. And I think what we're seeing is, evidence of that slow shaking out. And I think I'm inclined to agree with Keith on this. This is something that's going to take, it probably won't happen in our lifetime. This is something that's going to have to shake itself out over the next 2 to 3 generations.
And we are in agreement. That was essentially what I was trying to so eloquently put, Obsidian. That's all. That's it. And both SKC is correct, and that Obsidian silent nuance is also correct.
Yeah, I agree with that, Keith. I just think that I think that the aggregate of Black America doesn't want to accept is that the future of, if there's going to be a Black community in the future, generations from now, they're going to have to accept that the ideas that some people are holding on to, so far as, in order for you to be Black, we have to have this super black on black on black. No, you're just gonna have to take what you get.
I agree. I think we're moving in that direction. But I agree with you.
You're gonna have to be damn happy with it.
I agree with you. And we're back to, I don't see where none of us really disagree. We're all in agreement. Boom.
How about that?
All right, fellas. All right. On that note, we about to get up out of here. I want to thank everybody who shared, subscribe, hit the super chat. Ain't nobody hit the cash app, but anybody who hit the super chat, all of y'all, much love, much respect. We'll be back tomorrow around the same time. You know how we do it. Let's get the hell up out of here. Peace, fellas.